A man unexpectedly gets reborn back into his high school days. The first thing he wants to do is tell his parents that he wants to become a Taoist priest, even after being beaten black and blue by his loving parents. His determination to become a Taoist priest remains unshaken. His name is Wang Kuan. He's 17 years old, but already has an 8-pack. He still has to do 1 million push-ups every day. Logically speaking, young people his age usually stay at home playing games, or buy some snacks to pass the time, but he doesn't dare, because he is a reborn person. He knows that soon the rocket launched in the news will bring something back from the moon. Let the spiritual energy, dormant for thousands of years, revive once again, and bring the earth into the era of universal cultivation. In his previous life, he was just a small, wandering cultivator, until he was 31 years old, when he got caught in a gang war over territory. As a result, he inexplicably died. He didn't even know who killed him. Fortunately, heaven gave him a chance to be reborn. In this life, he can't die in a muddled way again. He must make something of himself. He slightly improved his physique and developed 8-pack abs, but unfortunately, the cultivation method is incomplete. Now, he has reached a bottleneck. The only way to break through is one option, that is to take on a master. So, he decisively put on his clothes and went to the living room. He told his parents about his wish to become a Taoist priest on Wudang Mountain. His kind parents were very understanding of his decision. Although the cost was rather high, but Wang Xing finally came to Wudang Mountain to become a disciple. In his past life, Wudang Mountain held a certain weight among the top experts in the Immortal Tao ranking. Unfortunately, he failed to find a master then. This time, he must seize the opportunity, but after he finally climbed the mountain and arrived at Zixiang Palace, he was informed by a Taoist boy who was playing on his phone, that the Taoist priest Gao Shixing he was looking for was not in the mountains and had gone abroad for a performance. Wang Sheng was stunned. The Taoist priest Gao Shixing, whom he had planned to pay respects to, was destined to be one of the top 30 experts on the heavenly ranking. Before the revival of the world's spiritual energy, he could already be considered a representative of Wudang martial arts, but now he and several other Taoist priests are not around. Wang Sheng can only sadly pick up his suitcase. He plans to leave the mountain and find another sect to learn cultivation. At this moment, a voice suddenly comes from a nearby stall. Young man, if you're at the age to study, just focus on your studies. Don't let those stories in novels fool you. If you really want to learn martial arts, I can recommend a few martial arts manuals from Wudang. Wholesale price, only 300 per book. This is a genuine Wudang ancient martial arts inheritance. It will absolutely make you the unparalleled master of the world. If you, young master, have any needs regarding inner strength cultivation, you can also participate in the accelerated internal breath cultivation class I teach. Looking at the unkempt middle-aged Taoist priest, selling to him, Wang Sheng trembled with excitement. Without hesitation, he chose to become his disciple. He expressed his willingness to follow the Taoist priest in seeking immortality and the Tao. It was because he recognized the Taoist priest. He was Qin Yanzi, the renowned Taoist priest. In his past life, he was a top 5 cultivator on the heavenly rankings. This was definitely a stroke of luck. But Qin Yanzi sounded somewhat listless upon hearing his words. Youngster, if you had said you came to learn formal cultivation techniques, that would have been more believable. Just opening your mouth and speaking casually is cultivating the Tao. Have you ever seen anyone perform magic? However, Wang Sheng thought this was Qin Yanzi's test of him. He immediately began to speak eloquently. Disciple believes that the Tao is a kind of spirit, a different understanding of heaven, earth, and the universe. I couldn't find a master I wanted to worship on Mount Wudang. But the moment I saw you, I knew you were no ordinary person. Qin Yanzi heard that and quickly interrupted him, realizing he wouldn't stop. You're quite the interesting little one. Talking so much about theory and doctrine, and yet being picky about choosing a master. I'm just a figurehead at Wudang Mountain. In all these years, I've only taken one disciple. I haven't really been involved in her training. Are you sure you want to become my disciple? Besides, are your parents aware that you're begging to be taken as an apprentice? Do your parents know? Wang Sheng quickly replied. My parents came with me. Taoist, I truly want to follow you and cultivate. After hearing this, Qin Jianzi was finally sure that Wang Sheng wasn't someone who had run away from home after watching too many novels or movies. So he told Wang Sheng, answer me 3 questions. If your answers satisfy me, I will have your parents come and talk to me. Then Qin Yanzi asked 2 questions, both related to the Tao. Wang Sheng answered them all fluently, but when it came to the 3rd question, Qin Yanzi showed a sinister smile. He gave Wang Sheng a life or death question. If you become my disciple, and both me and your father fall into the water and are about to drown, who would you save first? After hearing this, Wang Sheng stood frozen in place. There is a saying in the Taoist tradition, the unfilial cannot become a person of virtue. If you save your parents first, it means you've placed your master beneath them. The saying, a master is like a parent, would then be contradictory. He answered by saying he would save his father, but what he never expected was. Not only that, Qin Jianzi also convinced his parents to let him stay at Wudong Mountain, but Qin Jianzi still had to tell Wang Sheng, right now, you are only my probationary disciple. After your probationary period, I'll decide whether or not to formally accept you as my apprentice. This is where I live. Usually, only my senior sister and I are here. For now, you can stay here with us. Wang Sheng, trailing behind, panted and replied, yes. When they arrived at the residence, Qin Yanzi introduced Wang Sheng to his senior sister, Mu Guanchuan. Wang Sheng was stunned for a moment upon hearing the name. Then, he immediately became restless. He became incredibly excited. This was because of his senior sister, Mu Guanchuan. In a past life, she was known as the Silent Immortal. Along with the silent Taoist Qin Jianzi, she was among the top 10 masters on the heavenly ranking. Now he has two such expert protectors. From now on, won't he just walk all over everyone? Seeing Wang Sheng constantly giggling to himself, senior sister Mu Guanchuan asked her master dubiously, is he alright in the head? King Xinzi remained silent for a moment, but soon, she let it go. If it were a normal child, who would be willing to send them up the mountain to suffer? You are the senior sister. In the future, take good care of your junior brother. Mu Suashuan nodded. The group then entered the house. Qin Yanzi once again seriously told Wang Sheng, although you call me master, but before the initiation, there will be a period of assessment. You need to be mentally prepared. If you can't handle it, I won't force you to stay on the mountain, understand? Wang Sheng immediately straightened his back and said, as long as master doesn't expel me from the mountain, I will never give up, no matter what. Then Qin Jianzi arranged for him to grind 2 bags of wheat into flour first. Wang Sheng took off his coat and got to work. He placed a handful of wheat first. Then he began to grind, step by step. His calm and steady demeanor caught Qin Yanzi's attention. Soon, sunlight broke through the clouds. It dispelled the surrounding chill. Qin Yanzi called Mu Guanchuan out to practice. The two of them sat down cross-legged and began their cultivation. A swirl of spiritual energy circled around them. Wang Sheng couldn't help but feel envious when he saw this scene. Indeed, even though there has been a lack of natural spiritual energy, the inheritance of cultivation has never been broken, even if it's just the process of calming the mind. Such cultivation, accumulated over many years, is incredibly formidable. No wonder, after the revival of the world's spiritual energy, the cultivation speed of these monks far exceeds that of ordinary people. Thinking of this, Wang Sheng became even more determined. He thought that once he passed the entry trials, his master would definitely teach him some cultivation methods. Although it's comfortable under the big tree, in the end, nothing is more important than one's own strength. Even if he can't match his senior sister, he still couldn't end up too badly in the future. But for now, let's be down to earth and take it one step at a time. Seeing this scene, Qin Yanzi, who was meditating, nodded in satisfaction. Soon, it was noon. Wang Sheng finally finished grinding the 2 bags of flour, but he was exhausted. Although he had been doing physical training for several months, he had never done this kind of hard labor before. It's my first time doing this, so I'm a little uncomfortable. At this time, senior sister Mu Xian brought him a bowl of water with concern. Wang Sheng quickly took it and thanked his senior sister. After resting for a while, Qin Yanzi arranged a room for him, and said that his own room was in the side room. If he needed anything, he could come and find him. Also, after his nap, he could go to. Shanxia went to see his parents to reassure them. After speaking, Qin Yanzi left gracefully, but only a short while later, he returned. He waved at Mu Suashuan, who was playing snake, signaling her to come over. She came over as he asked. The two of them peeked into the room. They saw Wang Sheng meditating seriously. Satisfied, they withdrew their heads. Qin Yanzi still couldn't help but praise him. But unexpectedly, a loud bang suddenly came from inside the room the next second, immediately followed by a series of heavy breaths. It turned out that Wang Sheng had fallen asleep while meditating. Both master and disciple couldn't help but laugh. He really didn't live up to the praise. The man was originally a small, independent cultivator in the era of spiritual awakening. Unexpectedly, he was unexpectedly reborn back before the spiritual awakening. I successfully became a disciple of Qinjianzi Dao Chang, who ranks among the top 5 on the future heavenly list. I also have a beautiful senior sister, ranked in the top 10 of the heavenly list, as company. From now on, I'll be walking all over everyone. Just now, Wang Sheng went down the mountain and reported his safety to his parents. Then he took his bedding and returned to the mountain. But what he found strange was that even though there's mountain spring water on the mountain for them to use, why did his master still ask him to carry water specifically from down the mountain? Go buy 2 boxes of the cheapest bottled water. Wang Xing didn't think much of it, though. He figured his master must have a reason for doing this. He just had to follow orders. But when he returned to the residence, he was completely stunned. He incredulously asked his master what he was doing. Qin Yanzi was holding a brush, writing characters on the bottled water. After finishing, the originally cheapest bottle of mineral water became Wudong Mountain Holy Water. Wang Xing stood frozen in place. After a while, Qin Yanzi finally noticed him. He proudly introduced his side business. This is specially designed for those lay practitioners who pray for blessings. Each bottle costs between 20 to 100. I can sell more than 10 bottles a day. This also shattered Yu Xing's image of his master in a certain aspect. His master's image in a certain aspect was completely shattered in Yu Xing's mind. Then Qin Yanzi called Wang Xing to the backyard. He wanted to demonstrate a set of boxing techniques. As a welcome gift for Wang Xing's entry, Wang Xing's face lit up with surprise. He didn't expect to be able to start practicing so soon. Soon, the two arrived at the backyard. After Qin Yanzi demonstrated a set of boxing, he began to guide Wang Xing in practice. After completing the set of boxing, Wang Xing felt his body heat up. It seemed as though a current was flowing through his body. Although the set of boxing his master taught him was simple, it contained profound principles. Wang Xing hadn't expected that upon just starting, he would already learn such a subtle set of boxing techniques. This made him incredibly happy. He decided to master this set of martial arts today. So, without realizing it, Wang Xing practiced until it got dark. But when he turned around, he found his senior sister had actually fallen asleep leaning against the door. Helpless, Wang Xing had no choice but to wake her up. He told her to go back to bed. Mu Guanchuan sleepily responded. He walked straight toward the house. He looked at the back of his senior sister. Wang Xing remembered what master had mentioned before. His senior sister had suffered from a serious illness when she was young. That was how she developed her difficulty with speaking. As her junior, he promised to take good care of her in the future. But as he thought about it, it suddenly fell on his head. He saw his senior sister, still groggy, preparing to take off the last piece of clothing. She was about to reveal an inappropriate sight. Wang Xing quickly closed his eyes, handed the clothes back to her, and told her to go inside to change. He said, "Good night," and slammed the door shut. Then, Wang Xing returned to his own room. But I still blushed, recalling what just happened. I didn't expect senior sister to be so unguarded in front of me. But I, her soon-to-be junior brother, can't take advantage of her. But the senior sister now is so different from the image of the silent immortal I had in my past life. At that moment, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his arm. It must be from the self-created heavenly strike fist. Sure enough, today's formal training wasn't that easy. But Wang Xing didn't feel a bit of anger. Instead, he was preparing to meditate for a while before going to sleep. However, just as he crossed his legs and got into a meditative posture, his eyelids couldn't help but droop. Then, he directly fell asleep. He didn't know how long passed. In his daze, he seemed to see someone in front of him. The person asked, "Are you awake?" Wang Xing rubbed his eyes and saw who had arrived. He immediately jolted awake and sat up. It turned out to be his master, Qin Yanzi. Qin Yanzi told Wang Xing to lie down and rest. He had come so late because Wang Xing had started his training late, resulting in blocked meridians. His body was also rather stiff, so he planned to help Wang Xing loosen his bones and unblock his meridians. As Qin Yanzi spoke, his hands rested on Wang Xing's stomach. Wang Xing could feel his master's palms. They seemed to carry a current of alternating hot and cold air. This should be the inner breath that martial artists have always pursued. Now that the earth's vital energy hasn't revived, Master achieved this through years of arduous cultivation. This accomplishment must have taken a lot of hard work. Now Master can actually use the hard-earned internal energy helped him push the bones and activate the meridians. How could he not be moved by this? Since that's the case, he could not disappoint his master even more. So, the next day, Wang Xing woke up early to practice. He wasn't sure if it was just psychological, but ever since he got up, Wang Xing felt as light as a swallow. He also felt much more energetic than yesterday. Qin Yanzi nodded slightly upon seeing this. "Not bad. You're looking quite the part. Yesterday was just to help you get acclimated. Today, I won't be giving you much rest. You need to be mentally prepared." Hearing this, Wang Xing became even more motivated. Although his master said he would increase the intensity of the training, he hadn't given him any tasks beyond his limits. It's simply to exhaust his physical strength, to make him feel profound fatigue. And his master would help him realign his bones and meridians every 3 days. Because of the residual internal energy of his master remaining in his body, after 2 or 3 times, he could already feel the approximate location of his meridians throughout his body. Taking this opportunity, Wang Sheng also tried cultivating the basic techniques he obtained in his past life. Although it still hasn't had much effect, the frequency and quality of expelling the turbid air from my body have clearly improved. The only drawback is that the effect of expelling the turbidity is quite significant, causing my senior sister to pinch her nose in disgust and quickly flee from my room. However, Qin Jianzi smiled. I think Wang Sheng is indeed a good prospect. A month quickly passed. Qin Yanzi called Wang Sheng over and told him, "You've been here for a month now. Your initial training is complete, and you've performed well. I will invite a senior Taoist master to come and witness the ceremony and pass on the teachings to you. You should set out early tomorrow." After a fragrant bath at noon, the formal initiation ceremony began. The next day at noon, Qin Yanzi invited Master Ji as a witness. He made Wang Sheng kneel before the portrait of the ancestral master. Only then did the formal initiation ceremony begin. "Now that you've entered, you must have a master to follow. Our lineage is passed down from Master Lu Dongbin. After your initiation, your generation name will be Yu. Your senior sister's Taoist name is Buyu. Your Dao name shall be Feiyu. Today, I will pass you a true scripture left by the pure young immortal of our sect. You have half a month to copy it. This will be the foundation of your cultivation from now on. You must follow this scripture." Wang Sheng respectfully took the scripture. With a face full of joy, he thanked his master for transmitting the teachings. After the formalities, Qin Yanzi planned to accompany Master Li for a meal. Let Wang Sheng and the others clean up here. As soon as they left, Wang Sheng habitually asked his senior sister if she wanted to have some snacks. But when he turned around, he realized she had already disappeared. Turns out she had already eaten. This made Wang Sheng involuntarily sigh. Her movement technique is truly masterful. No wonder she's one of the top 10 on the heavenly rankings. But seeing senior sister like this, it's really hard to connect her with the image of the silent immortal. At this time, senior sister suddenly patted him on the shoulder. She took out a grape and was about to feed it to him. Wang Sheng turned his head, and the grape went into his mouth. He smiled foolishly and said, "Thank you, senior sister." Then Mu Guanchuan sat on the chair, eating grapes while listening to Wang Sheng recite scriptures. I couldn't help but think of Master's earlier words to her, to take good care of her junior brother. I've decided I need to work harder to look after him from now on. What kind of amazing master is this? She actually, because it got cold, sent her young disciple to warm her senior sister's bed, and she even had the nerve to call it, "Two people sleeping together will be warmer." And the senior sister seems quite pleased with it. After performing the apprenticeship ceremony, Qin Yanzi began to impart Taoist cultivation methods, scriptures, and other knowledge to Wang Sheng. Among them was, of course, the core of the Taoist sect's focus on martial arts cultivation. Since Wang Sheng had already been in the sect for 2 months, Qin Yanzi asked Mu Guanchuan to probe into his background. As for martial arts cultivation, it is, to be precise, a method of cultivating to protect the Tao. It still relies on the primal energy of heaven and earth. Cultivators, besides seeking truth and comprehending the Tao, also need to cultivate Taoist techniques and arts, to protect themselves, uphold the Tao, and practice chivalry. Such Taoist arts include esoteric techniques, the 8 trigrams, Taoist formations, talismans, elixirs, and refining. These Taoist methods were once glorious. It's a pity that later, the Earth's vital energy gradually depleted, making it ultimately impossible to achieve anything without the necessary resources. Taoist arts have just become ornamental. When cultivators lose their vitality and still need to protect themselves, they focus on enhancing the combat aspects of Taoist arts. This is the origin of martial cultivation. After a lengthy sparring session with senior sister, Wang Sheng was completely beaten into submission. He even started to question his life. He had worked so hard on his training. I can't even touch senior sister's sleeve corner. Could it be that the gap between me and the potential big shot is really this huge? So, Wang Sheng asked senior sister with a tearful tone, "If I'm ever bullied in the future, you have to help me get back at them." Senior sister smiled and nodded. At this moment, Master Qin Yanzi called Wang Sheng over. Mu Guanchuan's Taoist martial arts, comparable to the Tui Bagua. This sword formation is called the 7-star sword formation. If cultivated to perfection, the sword is unseen, yet present in the heart. The Big Dipper appears, and all demons are swept away. Then, only see Qin Yanzi's toes tap lightly. In an instant, countless afterimages appear. His feet step upon the 7 stars, turning without end. In the end, the 7 swords will merge at one point. Wang Sheng was utterly shocked when he saw this. It was the profound realm of the seven swords shadow merging as one. This is the Tao rhythm driven by the Qi of heaven and earth, but isn't the Qi of heaven and earth still dormant? While Wang Sheng was still in a daze, Qin Xinzi had already finished demonstrating the swordsmanship. He placed the twig in Wang Sheng's hand and said, "If you practice this sword technique, it would already be considered top-tier talent if you make some progress in 3 years. Don't rush. Start with the basics of dismantling moves first." Wang Sheng nodded seriously. "I will not disappoint my master's efforts. As long as I rise with determination and relentlessly pursue, one day, I will be able to brush against senior sister's sleeve." Qin Yanzi heard him speak so hopelessly, and immediately gave him a smack on the head. "Look at you, such a useless sight." Wang Sheng covered his head and grinned foolishly. "This is just a short-term goal. I'm nowhere near as good as senior sister right now, but I don't want to always be worse than her in the future. After all, there's someone as cute as her. The senior sister is, of course, someone to be protected." Qin Yanzi smiled upon hearing this. "That's more like it." Then, Wang Sheng continued practicing the 7 stars sword formation. With the experience from over 40 years of self-study in his past life, he was able to make use of his cultivation knowledge. In just one afternoon, he had already memorized nearly half of the entire sword technique, but he showed no sign of relaxing, because in his past life, he suffered from a lack of systematic cultivation methods. If he didn't work harder, he'd be letting down this rebirth. And compared to his senior sister, he was far behind. So, he trained desperately. Soon, summer passed, autumn went, and winter arrived. Wang Sheng had unknowingly been on the mountain for half a year. Through this time together, he had come to understand more and more about his master and senior sister. He increasingly felt like a young man who accidentally wandered into a celestial retreat, chopping wood. Senior sister's mind is pure and untainted. Her understanding of the Tao seems almost engraved in her bones. If someone like him, an ordinary person, can only follow the Tao but not practice it, the senior sister walks the path of Tao in the mortal world. However, it seems she doesn't understand matters between men and women. She doesn't understand why there should be differences between the sexes. This troubles him greatly. But compared to the senior sister, Master Qin Yanzi is clearly even more extraordinary. Whether it's the Tao, scriptures, talismans, or weapons, he is proficient in everything, including ghost hunting, exorcising evil, alchemy, and medicine. Wang Sheng didn't know how his master managed to master so many skills in just 40 years of life. With such extraordinary master and senior sister, Wang Sheng spent his days meditating, cultivating, studying Taoist scriptures, and listening to his master's lectures. He devoted his remaining time and energy to cultivating the 7-star sword formation. In half a year, he had become fully familiar with the 7-star sword formation. But in front of his senior sister, he still had no right to feel complacent. All he could do now was keep pushing himself, trying his best to catch up to his senior sister's pace and not fall too far behind. Seeing that Wang Sheng had managed to get a decent grasp of the 7-star sword formation in just half a year, Qin Yanzi was deeply gratified. He felt that Wang Sheng's talent was likely even higher than he had initially expected. But since the weather has turned cold now, with snow falling and the chills setting in, Qin Yanzi suggested that Wang Sheng should start sleeping in the same room as senior sister from tonight. That way, it will be warmer. Wang Sheng hurriedly blushed and waved his hand. "Master, it's better if senior sister sleeps there instead." "I'm fine." Huan smiled and leaned closer to him. "Don't tell me you even have designs on your own senior sister." Wang Sheng awkwardly smiled. "How could I? Am I that kind of person?" Qin Yanzi placed a hand on her shoulder and said earnestly, "Be more innocent, young man. This is also a kind of tempering for your character. Right. Remember to change the bedding for you and your senior sister." Wang Sheng looked helpless. But that night, he still had to sleep in the same room with his senior sister. He then huddled alone in his quilt. He didn't know what Master meant. Did Master want to pair him up with his senior sister? At this moment, his senior sister suddenly poked his face. Wang Sheng turned his head and saw his senior sister showing a look of, "Junior brother is ignoring me, and my baby is upset." It seemed like his senior sister was really looking forward to him moving in. In that case, his reaction was indeed a bit inappropriate. "I was just a little embarrassed." At that moment, his senior sister seemed to suddenly think of something. She then took out a chessboard and got ready to play a game of Gamoku with Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng finally understood he had been misinterpreting. His senior sister was as innocent as a blank sheet of paper. She had absolutely no concept of that, but he still needed to remind his senior sister. "Only half an hour of playing. Otherwise, we'll be drowsy all day tomorrow." Master will scold us again. Soon, the Lantern Festival on the 15th day of the first month arrived. Wang Sheng is practicing swordsmanship in the yard. During this period, he has a famous master by his side, passing down teachings. His progress is much stronger than in his past life. According to his memories from his past life, today should be the day when vital energy revives. So, he has been practicing swordsmanship in the yard, constantly paying attention to the changes in the spiritual energy of the world. He is ready to notify his master and senior sister at the earliest opportunity. Don't let them miss this opportunity. At this moment, the master and disciple, who were eating glutinous rice balls, suddenly stopped their movements. Qin Yanzi even widened his eyes in shock. The primordial energy of heaven and earth is finally coming. The primordial energy of heaven and earth is awakening. The earth is about to enter an era of universal cultivation. The master and disciple at Wudang Mountain are witnessing this. He immediately felt the change in his energy. Just as Wang Sheng turned to remind his master and senior sister, Qin Yanzi suddenly appeared behind him. He told him not to speak. Sit down and circulate the sex core technique. Don't miss this opportunity. Your senior sister's meridians have already opened. She is now in a deep meditation. I will lend you a hand to open all the meridians in your body. Wang Sheng was deeply moved. You have to understand, the first trace of spiritual energy to awaken after 1,000 years of silence is priceless to a cultivator. If you miss it in this lifetime, you may never have such an opportunity again. But even under these circumstances, Master is still concerned about his little disciple's meridians not being fully opened. How can he repay this kindness in the future? Soon, with Qin Yanzi's help, Wang Sheng's meridians were opened. His Zhou Tian circulation speed was now several times faster than before. This should be the enhancement brought to cultivators by the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. It seems that after today, earth will enter a new era. A moment later, Wang Sheng finished his cultivation and opened his eyes. He found his senior sister looking at him with a concerned expression. Wang Sheng instinctively wanted to ask his senior sister if she had finished her meditation, but his foot was stopped by his senior sister's hand. She pointed towards Master Qinjianzi. A pillar of light shot towards the sky from where Qinjianzi was. Qinjianzi was breaking through, and he was breaking through 4 realms at once. It was clear that his master had already achieved the state of concentrated spirit. I'm about to break through to the void core. At the same time, he couldn't help but sigh. Though the primordial heaven and earth is great, it's still just a little pure. Ordinary cultivators can't rely on it to break through their realms. Those who can rely on it to break through are clearly those who have cultivated for decades, only now reaping the benefits. Master's accumulation is truly terrifying, and senior sister's exceptional talent needs no further mention. Even his cultivation has reached new heights. In just one night, the true essence in his body has become several times purer. The gains are even more substantial than years of hard work in his past life, and thanks to the true essence within his body, his comprehension of the 7-star sword formation has already entered a whole new realm. The wooden sword he now practices with has already. He could no longer withstand his true essence and sword intent. As for the master, ever since the awakening of the primordial world, he has been in a meditative state. It wasn't until 3 days later that the master finally emerged from seclusion. After a period of rest, the master began to recount the cultivation world from 1,000 years ago. At the same time, he warned them that the world would change. Chaos would inevitably follow. As cultivators, they naturally must also shoulder the great responsibility of eliminating demons and defending the righteous path. And after a brief explanation, the master and his 2 disciples lives once again, returned to their former tranquility. Everything seemed unchanged, but with the blessing of true qi, they truly possessed cultivation. Wang Sheng soon mastered the 7 stars sword formation, to the point of proficiency. With just a wooden sword, he pierced through the wall. Qin Yanzi was greatly pleased when he saw this. However, Wang Sheng's current problem was whether this would be considered damaging the public property of Wudang Mountain. Qin Yanzi smiled. Not at all, not at all. Time flew by, and seasons changed unnoticed in the mountains. Wang Sheng also spent 3 years on Mount Wudang. But today, his usually peaceful days of cultivation were temporarily disrupted by the arrival of a Taoist priest. This visitor was none other than Master Li, who had witnessed his initiation ceremony. It turned out that since the spiritual energy revival, most sects had recovered their lost inheritances. Nature, too, is unwilling to be lonely. Not long ago, more than 20 prominent clans planned to hold an exchange meeting at Maoshan to secretly probe each other's strengths and weaknesses. It was precisely because of this exchange meeting Li Shiwu felt helpless about this. From his headmaster brother to his 2 uncles, they all said that cultivation was important. Instead, they pushed this responsibility onto him. But his cultivation is low. In case someone intentionally tests him, he's afraid he won't be able to keep control of the situation. So, I had to ask senior brother Kinjianzi for help. After learning the details, Kinjianzi said in a deep voice, "If you're looking for a cultivator at the foundation establishment stage to stabilize the situation, I'm afraid I can't go." After hearing this, Ji Shiwu immediately lied. "Junior brother, could it be that your cultivation level has dropped? How is that possible?" Qin Yanzi turned his head and gave a faint smile. "It's not that it dropped. Rather, I broke through to the void pill realm a few months ago. It might not be appropriate for me to go." While speaking, Qin Yanzi didn't forget to condense a sphere of qi in his hand. "If you're so ordinary, you instantly strike Li Shiwu so hard. I can't help but mutter national essence in my heart. Such high level, impressive. Reaching the void elixir realm, impressive. I just reached the spirit gathering realm. Can you please consider my feelings?" Then Qin Yanzi spoke again. "Although I can't go, my two disciples do meet your requirements. Have Buyu and Feiyu already broken through the fetal formation realm?" Kinjianzi sighed with a somewhat reluctant expression. "So. Xiao Xian just broke through to the fetal formation realm a few months ago. Xiao Xing focuses on the sword path and started training later, so his realm is somewhat lower than his senior sister's. Barely late-stage gathering spirit realm." Hearing this, Li Shiwu felt like crying from the blow. "I know your own cultivation is high, and your disciple is talented, but do you need to show off like this? If it weren't for your higher cultivation, I'd really want to fight you to the death right now." Meanwhile, eavesdropping outside the door was, Wang Sheng was trying hard to suppress his laughter, thinking to himself that Master's skill of blending steadiness with flexibility was truly becoming more and more refined. Soon, evening arrived. After Li Shiwu and Qin Yanzi finished discussing the related matters, they bid each other farewell. Then, Qin Yanzi began instructing Wang Sheng to take senior sister and follow Li Shishu to the exchange meeting, with details on what to pay attention to. But compared to Wang Sheng, senior sister Mu Guanyuan grew up in the mountains since she was young. Her mind is pure and free of distractions. Naturally, she received all sorts of reminders from the master. For example, after leaving the mountain, she must always keep her phone on her. If the battery is low, use a power bank to charge it. Don't casually talk to strangers, and don't get into other people's cars. The men down the mountain are unreliable. They always want to show concern for their junior brothers, whether necessary or not. Mu Guanchuan nodded in agreement to everything. Wang Xing smiled at his master's earnest words. He smiled at his master's painstaking advice. It's never as serene and carefree as it is up in the mountains. And his senior sister, with her simple heart, is also strikingly beautiful and passive. It's quite possible I've been fooled. But speaking of which, these past few years, Wang Sheng has improved a lot. He's now reached the level of helping his senior sister organize her personal clothing and change her facial expression. But there are exceptions. Seeing certain things too much can indeed easily unsettle one's resolve. Pack your luggage and wait at the door. Qin Yanzi reminded him to stay humble and not be rash during this trip. He must not bully the weak or flaunt his skills everywhere. Try to keep a low profile, understand? Wang Sheng patted his chest and promised. "Master, don't worry. Staying low-key is my specialty." At that moment, senior sister Mu Guanchuan, dressed in a Taoist robe, walked out. She left Wang Xing stunned. Qin Yanzi gave Wang Xing a push and laughed. "Go over there quickly. Let me take a picture of you too. Master will post it on my moments to make them envious." Wang Xing felt somewhat helpless. "Master, didn't you say you'd keep a low profile?" However, he still cooperated and took a picture. The Earth's vital energy has revived, and the world has entered the era of immortal cultivation. Major immortal cultivation sects have begun to recover their legacies, gathering at Mount Mao to settle the score. Wang Sheng and senior sister represent Wudong to maintain order. As soon as they descended the mountain, their appearance attracted the attention of passers-by who started taking photos. Wang Sheng smiled helplessly. He reminded senior sister, "If anyone takes photos of you or something, just pretend you didn't see it. Don't resort to violence." Senior sister nodded in agreement while eating. Seeing senior sister's silly and cute look, Wang Xing couldn't help but smile wryly. Senior sister is so beautiful. If someone tried to be a thug, and senior sister slapped them, that would be a scene hard to imagine. At that moment, Uncle Li waved to them. Wang Xing took senior sister to meet Uncle Li. Then, senior brother Ji introduced them to the other third-generation disciples of the Wudang sect. They were Zhou Yinglong, a sword cultivator, and Hao Ling and Meng Hong, body cultivators. Wang Xing saw that their auras had clearly reached the Jushin realm, and couldn't help but sigh. The Wudang strength was truly formidable. However, the core of the Wudong's lineage belongs to the Zhenwu lineage. The way of Dao is mostly similar to martial arts. In today's revival of Dao, the Dao and martial arts will probably be looked down upon or even ignored by other sects. Lost in thought, Wang Sheng and his senior sister got on the bus with everyone else. Once on the bus, Wang Sheng noticed his senior sister was staring out the window and couldn't help but ask, "Are you looking forward to it?" Unexpectedly, his senior sister immediately sent him several emoji stickers. This move really left Wang Sheng feeling quite helpless. The phone was bought for his senior sister when he performed a ritual for her. After changing the phone, his senior sister's skills with emoji packs have been improving. Now, if it comes to the ability to battle with images, everyone here would probably be useless. At the same time, Wang Sheng silently made a resolution in his heart. In his past life, he only lived to 31. This time, everything is different, and he must protect the people around him. Not long after, the bus arrived at the hotel at the foot of Mount Mao. Since the Taoist convention won't officially start until tomorrow afternoon, Uncle Li asked them to rest well during this time. Don't overwork yourselves. So everyone rested at the hotel for the night. But the next morning, my senior sister was alone in her room, playing with her phone and sulking. Wang Sheng carefully opened the door and asked, "Senior sister, were you waiting for me? Are you angry?" Unexpectedly, my senior sister slapped him with a "hurry up and coax me" emoticon. It turned out that last night, when they checked into the hotel, my senior sister had wanted to share a room with Wang Sheng, just like they did on the mountain. But after all, this is outside. Wang Sheng felt it was a bit inappropriate and refused. The senior sister got angry because of this. So today, he came early in the morning to appease her. He planned to take her out for a walk. After all, it's not every day they come to Maoshan. He wanted to buy some local specialties for their master. Coincidentally, the other disciples were also planning to go out to buy things. A few of them immediately decided to go for a walk together, to experience the charm of Mount Mao. However, as they were strolling around, a voice suddenly came from behind. "May I ask which Taoist sect you are from?" "I am Lu Yunji from Mount Mao." "It's a pleasure to meet you, fellow Taoists." The group turned around and introduced themselves. "I am Zhou Yinglong from Mount Wudong." "It's a pleasure to meet you all, fellow Taoists." After a brief exchange of pleasantries, both parties parted ways. This move left Wang Sheng feeling a bit regretful. He wasn't sure what these people from Maoshan were up to. Were they just here to say hello? But before he had gone too far, he suddenly heard mocking voices behind him. Now everyone is focused on cultivating and seeking enlightenment. What are the Wudong disciples doing here, just causing a scene? Do they want to perform a sword fight with bare fists? Wang Sheng turned his head and immediately understood. It turns out they were looking for someone to challenge. Seeing their aggressive posture, someone quickly couldn't hold back. They struck one of the yellow-haired guys. The yellow-haired guy shouted after being suddenly hit, "Who is attacking from the shadows?" Wang Sheng turned to look at his senior sister. He didn't need to think, he knew it was definitely his senior sister who did it. So he took his senior sister's hand and left. After all, if you've done something wrong, you don't just stay. Would he stay and pick a fight? Meanwhile, the two Maoshan disciples were shouting angrily on the spot. Who did it? Dare to act but not admit it. What kind of skill is it to stab someone in the back? If you think little of my mountain disciples, please step forward and teach us. At this moment, Lu Yunji bent down and interrupted them. If it weren't for the two of you speaking recklessly behind our backs, you wouldn't have gotten this. As he spoke, Lu Yunji picked up the object that had just been used to ambush the yellow-haired man. It's a tiny steamed dumpling, and it's completely intact. The wrapper isn't even broken. Seeing this, Lu Yunji couldn't help but think, the skill displayed in this subtle maneuver is no less than that arrogant jerk from Longhu Mountain. Wudong truly lives up to its reputation. Their younger generation indeed has some formidable figures. Soon, afternoon arrived. In front of the Chongshi Palace square of Maoshan, people from all the cultivation sects have gathered here. Uncle Ji is walking at the forefront, greeting everyone with warmth. But many cultivation sects are still gossiping about Wudong. These days, it's no longer about martial arts or swordsmanship ruling the world. Wudong actually came to join the excitement, and even sent out a beautiful female disciple to gain fame. Could it be that she's hired with money? Wang Sheng felt a bit helpless hearing these discussions. Dao Qing had just revived. It's understandable that Dao Wu isn't being given much attention. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to hold my senior sister back. Sure enough, when Wang Sheng turned his head, he saw his senior sister again, sending him a ready-to-fight emoji. It left Wang Sheng not knowing what to do. At this moment, Uncle Li sighed. Everyone should have some understanding of the current situation. All the sects are preparing to see us make a fool of ourselves. Later, during the Daoist exchange, there will most likely be someone who asks you all to step in and fight. At this point, Uncle Lee suddenly looked at Mu Guanchuan with bright eyes, and showed a smile as warm as Gukachin's. Don't say anything. As long as you step in and assert control later, we can just sit back and enjoy the show. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng was about to mention that his master had told them to stay low-key, but before he could finish, his senior sister nodded and agreed immediately. This left Wang Sheng feeling a bit overwhelmed. One can imagine what kind of scene will unfold next. It seems that all of you fellow cultivators can only rely on yourselves from here on. The primal energy of heaven and earth is awakening. The once declining immortal cultivation sects are rising again. But Wudang, which was originally famous for its martial arts and sword techniques, is now looked down upon by others. Some even think Wudang is just here to join the excitement. They even spent money to find a beautiful female disciple to gain fame. Little do they know, this female disciple of Wudang, they could easily crush everyone present. At this moment, an older Taoist from the Maoshan sect took the role of the host and announced the official start of the conference. Disciples from various sects will come on stage to display their cultivation. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately understood. This Taoist exchange conference is actually a Taoist aptitude test, isn't it? But before going on stage, he still needed to remind senior sister. If you're really going on stage, if it's not necessary, don't reveal too many skills. Just show your cultivation. The senior sister nodded. Then, a disciple from Maoshan stepped forward. In that case, let Maoshan go first. Consider it as throwing out a brick to attract jade. He then walked onto the stage. He took out a talisman and said, I beg your pardon. He began to infuse spiritual energy into it. The talisman's seal also quickly transformed and took shape. With a sound, the talisman really turned into a sword. Then, in the blink of an eye, he made it disappear. After watching this performance by the Yashan disciple, Wang Sheng and his senior sister were both speechless. It turns out that it's impossible for each sect to share their own Taoist practices. At that moment, a mocking voice suddenly came from behind. Is this the famous Maoshan Taoist practice? It's really impressive. When I was a child, I could watch 7 performances for 1 yuan under the overpass. They'd even find me a few extra cents. You've really made our talisman sect proud. Wang Sheng and senior sister turned to look in the direction of the voice. Then I saw a young man with blonde hair lying on a chair not far away. It seems he should also be from the Fusan zone. I just don't know whether he's a descendant of Longhu Mountain or Gazao Mountain. But judging from Wang Sheng's tone, he should have some conflict with the Taoists of Maoshan. At this time, the old Taoist who was hosting the competition came out to smooth things over. Each of the 3 schools of Fuzhuan has its own strengths and highlights. Let's invite the next inheritor to demonstrate. As soon as he finished speaking, Zhou Yinglong stepped onto the stage, representing Wudang with a sword in hand. He was ready to perform the Wudang Tai sword technique. But before he could begin, laughter suddenly rang out from the audience. The Wudang sword is indeed exquisite. But today, everyone is showcasing Taoist techniques. Is the swordplay really appropriate? Doesn't Wudang have a sword control technique? Previously, there was no spiritual energy in the world. Wudang naturally looks down on that so-called sword control technique. Hearing the ridicule from the crowd below, Zhou Yinglong on stage couldn't help but break into a cold sweat. At this moment, the young man with yellow hair spoke again. Don't speak carelessly. Be careful of this Wudang senior brother. He can summon 3,000 sword chi and eliminate all of you in an instant. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone burst into laughter. Zhou Yinglong was a bit at a loss. He stood there, unsure of what to do. Luckily, at that moment, Wang Sheng walked up. Senior brother Zhou, let me handle it. Zhou Yinglong thought for a moment. The master uncle once said that junior brother's swordsmanship is profound and high level. It seems he is indeed much better suited for this than I am. He then handed the sword to Wang Sheng with both hands. My skills are lacking. I'll trouble you, junior brother. Wang Sheng took the sword and replied modestly. Senior brother's sword technique has a subtle inner radiance. It's just that some of us with ordinary eyes might not recognize it. Luckily, I have some flashy sword moves. They're perfect for demonstration. Then, Wang Sheng closed his eyes and stood still. He murmured softly. The sword rises to pluck the stars. The sword falls to summon the moon. How can swordsmanship not be considered the way? After speaking, Wang Sheng leaped into the air, and sword energy surged around him. The Taoist master in charge looked on and couldn't help but exclaim. Clear sword heart. This is definitely the sword heart clarity recorded in ancient texts. Then, Wang Sheng began to demonstrate the 7-star sword formation. It transformed into countless afterimages. His feet moved in the pattern of the 7 stars, turning non-stop. Finally, he thrust his sword towards the sky. It actually pierced the sky above, leaving several visible rifts. What kind of realm is this? How can one have such incredible swordsmanship insight? Is this person the sword immortal? But he's just a third-generation disciple, right? And he even has cultivation at the gathering spirit stage? After the demonstration, Wang Xing sheathed his sword and prepared to leave. Now, no one will dare to look down on the young Wudong again. After stepping off the stage, Wang Xing returned the sword to senior brother Zhou. But when Zhou Yinglong took the sword, he felt that calling Wang Xing junior brother now felt a bit awkward. Is it too late for Wang Xing to start calling you senior brother again? Wang Xing was speechless. Senior brother, you're joking. The host, the old Taoist, then announced that next would be a good opportunity for each school to address shortcomings and verify each other's teachings. Fellow Taoists need not hold back and may freely ask one another. As soon as these words were spoken, Mu Guanyuan immediately became excited. She was practically brimming with anticipation. Wang Xing looked at her helplessly for a moment. Without a doubt, the senior sister's eyes lit up as she nodded. She then pointed to a corner, signaling Wang Xing to look over there. Wang Xing turned his head and looked. He noticed the blonde-haired young man from earlier was staring at them. Then, he stood up from his chair. He was now walking toward their direction. At first, Wang Xing suspected this guy might have his eyes on the senior sister. Only when the young man with yellow hair approached did he realize something was wrong. The person this guy was looking for was actually himself. Fortunately, at this time, Lu Yunji from Maoshan School came over. Diverting the young man's attention, Lu Yunji took the initiative to say, I would like to boldly ask for instruction on the Tao of Talismans from Longhu Mountain. May I have another exchange with this disciple? Shi Qianzhang sighed with a smile. He scratched his head and said helplessly, didn't you feel unsatisfied with your last defeat? But anyway, I'm not worried about that guy from Wudong running off with the sword. It won't take long to defeat you. However, when Shi Qianzhang called him the one with the sword, Wang Xing immediately looked displeased. He had the urge to go up and give him a strike with his sword, but he held back. The two of them then stepped onto the platform. Lu Yunji remained expressionless. Meanwhile, Shi Qianzhang smiled and asked him what they would compete in this time. Lu Yunji drew his sword and decisively replied, of course, it's the talisman technique. As disciples of the three main schools of talismans, a competition between the heirs of Maoshan and Longhushan, to see who excels more. Shi Qianzhang let out a loud laugh. I'm not afraid of anyone. He then demonstrated his ability to materialize objects from thin air. Wang Xing, watching from below, was utterly amazed by this scene. He never imagined that within the art of talismans, there could be such magical talismans. However, Lu Yunji had been cultivating since childhood, and received intensive training from his sect. It's not surprising to see someone at the mid-stage of the gathering spirit realm, but this Shi Ganzhang has actually reached the late stage of the gathering spirit realm. Now that the Earth's spiritual energy has just recovered, young people who can enter the gathering spirit realm are all promising talents. If this Shi Qianzhang weren't exceptionally talented, it must be that the Dao Cheng of Longhu Mountain has something magical about it. At this moment, Lu Yunji placed his hand on his sword, then lightly drew it across. Immediately, countless talismans circled around him. The Qing Law Order summoned the thunderous strike. In the next moment, 3 talismans flew out from the clouds. What followed was a deafening roar. A bolt of lightning struck straight down. Shi Qianzhang placed his hands in his pockets, and calmly took a step back, smiling. But Lu Yunji's attack did not stop. Instead, he continued to unleash the Thunderstrike sword, cutting through with it. With the combination of the Swift Movement Talisman and the Monkey Leap Talisman, the double buffs stacked up. Countless lightning bolts struck towards Shi Qianzhang. However, Shi Qianzhang still had his hands in his pockets. He casually dodged these attacks, as if walking leisurely in a garden. It's about time. He decided to take things seriously. He pulled out 2 talismans, transformed into a crane, and a spirit snake. They charged at Lu Yunji. Lu Yunji swung his sword and split the crane and snake in 2, but Shi Qianzhang merely smiled faintly and snapped his fingers. He then conjured multiple talismans with different attributes out of thin air. In an instant, 4 types of elemental attacks rained down on Lu Yunji from all directions. Shi Qianzhang directly expressed his intent. If you can force me to use a talisman costing more than 100 kwai today, I'll admit defeat, okay? Lu Yunji felt insulted, and shouted, shut up. He immediately decided to use all his strength. Instantly, countless talismans surrounded him, forming a golden protective shield that blocked Shi Qianzhang's 4 elemental attacks. Shi Qianzhang still calmly tucked his hands into his pockets and took a few steps back. He flicked out 2 black talismans, In the next moment, the two talismans transformed into countless butterflies. In an instant, they surrounded Lu Yunji. Then they were completely engulfed. But just at that moment, among the black butterflies, a faint golden light suddenly emanated. Lu Yunji formed a Taoist seal with his hands. A dazzling golden light erupted. It scattered all the black butterflies. I didn't expect that the Taoist robe was actually a magical artifact. Although the robe didn't seem to be of high grade, it required a large amount of true essence and spiritual will to sustain it. But to witness a true Taoist artifact, this trip was not in vain after all, and his senior sister beside him also looked at the stage with shining eyes, looking eager to try. The thought of taking it off and giving it to her junior brother. At this time, Shi Qianzhang on the stage suddenly smiled. A magical artifact passed down for thousands of years, was actually given to a Jushan realm disciple. Mao Shan is really shameless, but isn't it? The old folks from our Longhu mountain are pretty shameless too. Unfortunately, they gave me something like this earlier. As Shi Qianzhang spoke, he took out a crescent-shaped jade. Then he laughed and said, "How about it? Now, it seems no one cares about their reputation." Although Lu Yunji didn't know what this was for, but that piece of jade was clearly also a magical artifact. However, since he had already used his trump card, there was no room for defeat in this match. So, he decisively decided to strike first. He unleashed a massive beam of golden light that slammed toward Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang still had his hands in his pockets. He just casually swayed left and right a few times, and avoided the attacks. He then gently tossed the crescent-shaped talisman. The jade immediately attached to his forehead. In an instant, Shi Qianzhang's aura surged explosively. He formed hand seals and chanted an incantation. He shouted loudly, "Rise!" A blue protective shield instantly rose around him. It blocked Lu Yunji's incredibly rapid attack. Shi Qianzhang then summoned several black talisman symbols. With a single point of his finger, all the talismans simultaneously shot toward Lu Yunji. Seeing the situation was dire, Lu Yunji hurriedly raised a golden protective shield to block them. But he didn't expect that just before the black talismans hit him, they suddenly released a large amount of red liquid. The liquid then adhered to the golden protective shield. Upon seeing this, the disciples of Mao Shan in the audience all exclaimed in disbelief. "Do you even have any shame left?" On stage, Lu Yunji, after the black dog blood broke his shield, was momentarily careless and got his face scratched by a flying black symbol. Touching the blood on his face, Lu Yunji lowered his sword. With great difficulty, he uttered 3 words. "I lost." In the end, this battle was still won by Shi Qianzhang. Wang Xing couldn't help but sigh. This disciple of Longhu Mountain is indeed impressive. Suddenly, a voice came from the side. It was Uncle Li. "What's more impressive is Shi Qianzhang." Wang Xing was a bit confused. "Uncle Li, do you know him?" Uncle Li nodded seriously. "I've heard of him. He went to Chonghu Mountain to practice Taoism 5 or 6 years ago. He had already mastered basic talismanic techniques before the return of the primordial qi. After the return of the primordial qi, he quickly comprehended the upper and lower volumes of the Dragon Tiger Mountain talisman scripture. At such a young age, he has already created more than 10 talismanic techniques. He is now the top of Dragon Tiger Mountain's younger generation. He is directly trained by the celestial master of Dragon Tiger Mountain. His future is truly limitless." After listening to Master Ji's introduction, Wang Xing couldn't help but fall into deep thought. Logically speaking, if Shi Qianzhang had such potential, why had he never heard of this person in his previous life? Could it be that he encountered some calamity and died early? Otherwise, with his sharp tongue and flamboyant personality, how could he have remained unnoticed? At this moment, Shi Qianzhang, who had just finished the competition, suddenly burst into laughter. The young guy from Wudong Mountain who wanted the sword. "Let's spar a little." As soon as the words were spoken, everyone's gaze turned to Wang Sheng in the crowd. Wang Sheng, on the other hand, had an expression of forced composure. He recalled his master's instructions to keep a low profile before leaving, but then he glanced at his senior sister beside him. If he backed down without fighting like this, that would only leave Wudong with a reputation for cowardice, so he decided to accept the challenge. He stood up from his seat and said, "Senior brother-in-law, may I borrow your sword?" He is the future sword immortal of Wudong, with a clear and open sword heart. Yet, he usually uses a wooden sword. Now that he's going to compete, he doesn't even have a sword. Hearing that Wang Sheng was going on stage and needed to borrow a sword from someone else, the other disciples from various sects in the audience began to heckle. How little does Wudong value this future sword immortal, that they won't even provide him with a sword? Look at the disciples from Maoshan and Longhu Mountain. They throw talismans like they're free. At this moment, the senior sister suddenly tugged at Wang Xing's sleeve. her face filled with concern. Wang Xing gently held his senior sister's hand and comforted her softly. "Senior sister, rest assured. It's all right." Hearing this, senior sister's face immediately turned red. Then she began to cheer Wang Xing on. Before going on stage, Uncle Li instructed Wang Xing to pay attention to his own safety. Even if he loses, it's fine. Such reputation means nothing. Following this, Wang Xing officially went on stage. After the two exchanged their master-disciple titles, Shi Qianzhang suddenly pointed to Mu Guanchuan in the audience and said, "Hey, can you give me your senior sister's contact info? Or how about we make a bet? If you lose later, you'll give me your senior sister's contact info." Wang Xing merely replied indifferently, "Let's talk after the match." But deep down, he was seething with anger. It's really not easy to be so infuriating. The contest officially begins. Shi Qianzhang launched 3 talismans as his first attack. The talismans transformed into 3 balls of raging flames, hurtling towards Wang Xing. Wang Xing dodged to the right, leaving behind an afterimage. He easily evaded the attack. At that moment, a huge dark shadow instantly enveloped him. Looking up, he saw it was a giant immortal crane, formed from talismans, lifted its massive claws to strike him. Wang Xing leaped to avoid the claws. Then, using the 7 stars Big Dipper step, he instantly scattered the crane. The next second, he appeared before Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang was startled. He quickly used the 8 leap talisman to leap into the air, preparing to distance himself from Wang Xing. He planned to exhaust Wang Xing with talismans, but before he could land, Wang Xing was already behind him. Shi Qianzhang quickly turned around, trying to distance himself from Wang Xing again, but this time, Wang Xing didn't give him the chance. He instantly created countless afterimages, completely surrounding him. Then, seizing the opportunity, he decisively drew his sword. The speed was so fast that Shi Qianzhang couldn't react in time. The sword was already at his neck. The outcome was decided. Shi Qianzhang immediately conceded. "Big brother, please don't be upset. I absolutely have no improper intentions toward our senior sister." Seeing him admit defeat, Wang Xing also sheathed his sword. He turned and prepared to leave the stage. But he was stopped by Shi Qianzhang. Then, with a grin, Shi Ganzheng said, "Brother Sheng, I'm not quite convinced. How about we have another match? Otherwise, I'll be like Lu Yunji, bothering you all the time. I'll keep going to Wudong Mountain to challenge you." Wang Xing turned to Shi Qianzhang, utterly speechless. He couldn't understand the masters from Longhu Mountain. "Why don't you control this guy?" Shi Qianzhang, however, was thick-skinned and continued. "Come on, brother Sheng, can you be my brother from now on? Let's have another match. If I lose this quickly again, I absolutely won't mention competing with you, brother Sheng, ever again. As long as you win against others, I can't let others win against me. Isn't this too overbearing?" As soon as these words came out, even the audience couldn't bear to listen anymore. They all shouted for Shi Qianzhang to get down quickly, to stop making a fool of himself. Wang Sheng, to avoid further entanglement with this guy in the future, could only sigh helplessly and agree. Shi Qianzhang was so excited he couldn't contain himself. He immediately closed his eyes, formed a hand seal, and recited an incantation to gather energy. He used all the talismans he had. He was preparing to unleash a powerful move. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng, in order to make him accept defeat willingly, drew his sword but did not interrupt him. However, he was still a bit concerned that Shi Qianzhang might continue to cause trouble. So he decided, since it was like this, let him go all out first. Then pour a bucket of cold water on him. Let him experience what true despair feels like. At this moment, Shi Qianzhang suddenly opened his eyes, his face filled with excitement, and said, "I'm ready. Bring it on." With that, he launched his strongest attack at Wang Sheng. The 3 talismans drew a massive beast that charged directly toward Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng, however, simply sent out a sword energy with a flick of his wrist, and cleaved the 3 giant beasts in 2. Shi Qianzhang was astonished. But he was still unwilling to concede defeat. He unleashed another multi-elemental attack, a torrential assault aimed at Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng dodged the attack, creating several afterimages. He walked step by step towards Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang hurriedly summoned an earth wall to block it. But before his earth wall could rise, a gust of wind suddenly swept past him. In the next moment, Wang Sheng appeared behind him. A sword aura surrounded him. Upon seeing this, the audience immediately gasped. That was sword aura leaving the body. That's impossible. That boy, how young is he? Wang Sheng, however, stared blankly at the broken sword in his hand. I didn't expect even senior brother Zhou's sword couldn't withstand his true energy. Then he turned around, bowed to Shi Qianzhang, said with respect, and went straight off the stage to find his senior sister. He seriously told his senior sister that he had won. The senior sister immediately sent him a yay emoji. Wang Sheng smiled awkwardly. Thank you, senior sister, for cheering me on. But deep down, he was thinking, it seemed like he had stolen a bit too much of the spotlight today. But anyway, in the coming days, he would be in seclusion on the mountain, so it probably wouldn't matter. At this moment, the senior sister suddenly narrowed her eyes. He shielded Wang Sheng behind him. Turning his head, he saw Shi Qianzhang, who was holding the destroyed talisman bag. He was walking towards them with a gloomy face. Wang Sheng put his hand on his senior sister's shoulder. He indicated that he would handle this. Then he stepped forward and asked Shi Qianzhang what else he wanted. Shi Qianzhang gritted his teeth upon hearing this. With a whoosh, he charged forward. Everyone was startled. They quickly reminded Wang Sheng to be careful, but to their surprise, the next second, Shi Qianzhang suddenly began to cry out. Big brother, why couldn't you just cut me instead? Why did you have to cut my talisman? These black talisman materials are so expensive. I spent 30,000 just to make them. Everyone was stunned after hearing that. At that moment, a large foot was brought over. It interrupted Shi Qianzhang's intention to continue speaking. Then a harsh scolding followed. Stop embarrassing yourself here. Go back and have them inside give you twice the amount of materials. But to everyone's surprise, Shi Qianzhang actually took advantage of the situation and acted coy. He pushed further, saying, Shu, why don't you get me 10 or so sheets of plain yellow paper as well? Shu instantly slapped him across the face. Get lost. I don't even need that paper. Go back and stay out of trouble. Otherwise, I'll take back your magic tool. After saying that, he dragged Shi Qianzhang and turned to leave. But even then, Shi Qianzhang couldn't help but keep calling out to Wang Sheng. Brother Sheng, your swordsmanship has completely won my respect. Add me on WeChat, let's be friends. Let's grab a meal together later. Wang Sheng and Chen were speechless. I'm totally impressed by this clown. As the world's energy begins to recover, various immortal cultivation sects gather at Mount Mao for a martial arts exchange. A young representative from Wudang challenges the top genius of Longhu Mountain. Facing an endless array of talismans, he cut them all down with a single sword. He even made the top genius of Mount Longhu cry. After sending Shi Qianzhang off, the exchange conference finally got to the main topic. With Wang Sheng taking action, no one else dared to cause trouble. From then on, they just needed to quietly observe. And they could smoothly get through the entire conference. The competition soon reached the stage of the fetal stage. The other disciples of the sects were all hesitant to step up. They were afraid that if they lost, it would embarrass their sect. But Mu Guanchuan was completely unafraid. She went up and simply crushed her opponent. She remained expressionless and silent throughout. The other disciples watching from below were all astonished, their mouths agape. Wang Sheng, however, had a calm expression on his face. He thought to himself, as expected, ordinary people in the embryo formation realm are no match for senior sister. After the competition, Mu Guanchuan immediately walked towards Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng gave her a thumbs up. Senior sister, you're amazing. Hearing this, Mu Guanchuan let out a long sigh of relief. A smile once again appeared on her face. Then, whispers from other Daoist disciples came from behind. So young, yet already at the mid-stage of fetal condensation. A big shot. This is a real big shot. The words had just fallen when Mu Guanchuan unleashed her fetal condensation realm aura again. Her expression also turned serious, instantly shocking everyone around. Seeing her senior sister in front of her, the contrast compared to when she's in front of others. Wang Sheng smiled helplessly. Senior sister, this really puts you in a difficult position. But after today, each major sect should have already found its own path. As long as the world's vital energy continues to exist, the great era of cultivation will come again. I'm afraid this peaceful era won't last much longer. Although the Daoist sect can restrain its disciples, what about the independent cultivators, the heretical cultivators, or the demonic beasts who have embarked on the path of transformation? The path of cultivation may be easier, but how should one deal with the conflicts of this mortal world? In the end, Wang Sheng decided to simply stop thinking about it. After all, there's no use in thinking too much. One should only do what one is capable of. Even if the sky falls, there will be tall people holding it up. No matter what, as long as he follows the path of cultivation, he will be able to walk it with dignity in the future. Soon after, the exchange event ended. Wang Sheng, along with his senior sister and fellow disciples, prepared to leave the mountain. But unexpectedly, just a few steps out, they suddenly heard a familiar voice. Shenggu, wait a moment, Shenggu. Wang Sheng couldn't help but shudder upon hearing the sound. He turned his head with a stiff expression and asked, is there something you need? Then he saw Shi Qianzhang excitedly pick up his phone and say, "Add me as a friend. We agreed on this earlier. We'll definitely have to interact with each other in the future. Please take care of me." Wang Sheng, having no choice, added him as a friend. Then Shi Zhangcha suggested taking advantage of this opportunity to have a good chat with him. Wang Sheng replied indifferently, "Chatting is fine, but I can't afford to compensate for those talismans." Shi Qianzhang chuckled. No worries, no worries. At that time, I just wanted my senior uncle to help me get some materials. I inflated the amount a bit. Those clothes only cost a few thousand yuan. Wang Sheng felt a bit embarrassed. I can only describe him with 2 words. But just as they were about to descend the mountain together, they heard Lu Yunji's voice from behind. "Fellow Taoist Fei, please wait. Wait for me a moment. Today, I'm truly grateful to Dao brother for teaching this scoundrel a lesson. It really brought me a sense of satisfaction. I had no choice but to follow and thank Dao brother properly." Sheng cupped his hands. "Brother Lu, you're too polite." Meanwhile, Shi Zhang sneered, picking his nose. "Who are you putting on airs for with all that polite talk? What era is this? Still talking like this, brother that?" Lu Yunji immediately retorted. "That's still better than your vulgar language." Shi Qianzhang chuckled. "A defeated opponent still dares to stir things up in front of me." It looked like the two were about to fight. Wang Sheng hurriedly stepped in to smooth things over. "You must be hungry. Let's go down the mountain together and grab something to eat. I'll treat you to this meal tonight." The group then arrived at a restaurant to eat. At the conference, everyone was representing their respective sects, so they naturally felt a bit reserved. But once they entered the private room, it didn't take long before they started to warm up to each other. Through their conversations, Wang Sheng also learned that the situation with Shi Qianzhang and Lu Yunji. It turns out that Shi Qianzhang is the same age as him. As a child, he was rebellious and was sent by his family to a relative at Longhu Mountain for discipline. Because of his extraordinary talent in talisman crafting, he achieved the glory he has today. As for Lu Yunji, he's not unfamiliar to him. After all, in his past life, the other was one of the 36 outstanding disciples. He trained in martial arts under his master since childhood. Plus, his extraordinary demeanor gained him a large online following. As for how the two of them became sworn enemies, it goes back several years. When Lu Yunji went to Longhu Mountain for training, Shi Qianzhang knocked him unconscious with a blow to the head. Their feud began from that incident. Later, Lu Yunji's cultivation reached a small level of mastery. He wanted revenge, but repeatedly failed. This led to the scene at today's conference. And today at the conference, Wang Sheng and his senior sister impressed many sects. Their presence at the conference on their master's orders was quite reasonable, but he certainly wouldn't let it inflate his ego. After all, in this world, avoiding arrogance and complacency, and cultivating steadily is the right way. Soon, it's night. A woman is watching. She tells her subordinates to pick out the useful information as quickly as possible. At this time, a staff member seems to have discovered something and says, "Team leader, look." He then brings up the footage of Wang Sheng's battle. The audience exclaimed in amazement. "Who is that? A sword immortal? Isn't that swordplay only seen on TV?" At this point, the team leader picked up his cup and asked, "Who is he?" The staff member immediately replied, "This person is called Wang Xingdao, alias Fei Yu. According to the information we intercepted, his master is Daoist Qin Yanzi. It said that his cultivation is already above the embryonic stage." While speaking, the staff pulled up photos of Wang Sheng and Qin Yanzi. The team leader stared at them for a moment, lost in thought, and the cup in his hand fell to the floor. He turned and asked, "You say his master is who?" The man became a monk at Wudang and was a Taoist for 3 years. When he returned home, he unexpectedly brought back a daughter-in-law for his parents. It made his parents incredibly happy. The bride price was almost brought up. After the communication conference ended, Uncle Li specially gave Wang Sheng a few days off. During these days, Wang Sheng took his senior sister home to visit his parents. Unsurprisingly, his parents were very fond of their daughter-in-law. His father even secretly pulled Wang Sheng aside to ask him how far things had progressed with his senior sister, and whether he needed help preparing the bride price. Wang Sheng smiled and reassured his father, "I'll try my best to let you hold your grandson in my lifetime." Wang Sheng had a very comfortable time during this period. The only drawback was that every night he would receive a barrage of text messages from Shi Qianzhang. It made it completely impossible for him to sleep properly. After saying goodbye to his parents, Wang Sheng and his senior sister finally returned to Wudang. Seeing the two of them return, the Wudang disciples quickly began discussing, "Isn't that senior brother Fei Yu and senior sister Bu Yu? I heard from senior brother Ing Long. They were amazing at the exchange conference." It turns out that a few days ago, Zhou Long and the others returned first. They even spread the news of the conference all over Wudong Mountain. Now, all the temples in the mountain. Everyone already knows Wang Sheng and his senior sister's cultivation levels. But despite that, Wang Sheng wouldn't think of himself as superior. After all, they are all cultivators. Even though in his past life he suffered a lot from the condescending attitudes of many experts, this life, he doesn't want to become the kind of cultivator he once despised the most. But when the two returned to their residence, the master, with a serious expression, asked, "This trip to Mount Mao, didn't I tell you all to keep a low profile?" After hearing this, the senior sister immediately got scared and hid behind Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng awkwardly smiled. He was about to explain to the master. But then he saw the master burst into laughter. Then, the master placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Well done. Although we are guests at Wudong, we are not part of the true martial emperor's lineage. We are still cultivators of Wudong Mountain. You didn't embarrass your master this time. But you must quickly focus your mind moving forward. Junior brotherly sent some things yesterday. There are 2 valuable items inside. Consider this a reward for your journey. I still have matters to attend to at Taihe Palace. I'll bring you dinner back tonight." After saying this, Qinjianzi turned and left. At this time, Wang Sheng suddenly noticed that master seemed on the verge of a breakthrough after these few days. Afterwards, the two returned to their room. They began to examine the items sent by Master Li. Perhaps it was to thank them for their efforts at the exchange conference. Uncle Li specially prepared many gifts for Wang Sheng and senior sister. Among the gifts he prepared for him, it was clear that a lot of thought had been put into one. This ancient sword named Wen Yuan may seem ordinary, but with just a slight touch, one can tell that it contains hidden sword essence, clearly a weapon crafted specifically for sword cultivators. It's as mysterious as Shi Qianzhang's crescent-shaped ink jade, but it's also a rare treasure. As a reward for this trip to Maoshan, it's acceptable. After trying it out, Wang Xing returned to the room and handed the sword to his senior sister to have a look. His senior sister took the sword and gently caressed it, but she shook her head. Guan Zhuang. Wang Xing quickly said, "Senior sister, don't worry. I won't intentionally use it to harm anyone." Wang Xing knew that the sword master was ruthless. Senior sister must be worried that he might be influenced by the sword, affecting his Dao heart. Then he saw senior sister rummaging through the box. She took out a piece of jade with excellent quality and handed it to Wang Xing. Wang Xing quickly waved his hand. "Senior sister, I already have this sword. This jade pendant that calms the mind and soul is naturally for you. I didn't expect senior sister to send me a meme with the expression, 'I'm unbeatable.'" She wants to give him the jade pendant, but Wang Xing still waved his hand to refuse. "This is a gift from your martial uncle to you. How could I take it?" Seeing Wang Xing hesitate, the senior sister immediately put on a pitiful expression. Tears were welling up in her eyes. Wang Xing couldn't resist. He quickly said, "Senior sister, wait for me a moment," and ran out of the room. In no time, he returned. With a flushed face, he handed her a flute to show his apology. "I originally planned to wait until senior sister's birthday to give it to her as a gift. But now, I'll give it to her now. Senior sister, if you're giving me something, then you must accept what I give you." Senior sister happily accepted the flute. After a brief rest, their lives settled back into stability. Now, what Wang Xing needs to do is to strive for. He planned to raise his cultivation to the fetal formation realm within the year. He also wanted to experience what it meant to abstain from food. However, this peaceful life didn't last long. They hadn't even been back on the mountain for a month. Master Li rushed to their courtyard again, his face full of worry. He shouted, "Qinjianzi and Shi Dui, an evil spirit is harming people. Please, senior brothers, save them." Hearing that a ghost king had ascended, Wang Sheng was full of curiosity. Meanwhile, senior sister was so scared that her face turned pale. That night, Wang Sheng went to sleep as usual, but he woke up in the middle of the night and found senior sister was actually sleeping next to him. Wang Sheng's face turned bright red. He jolted awake and was about to sit up, but senior sister grabbed him and stopped him. At that moment, his senior sister was also blushing, looking at him. Then she pointed to the window beside them. Wang Xing listened to the howling wind outside the window and immediately understood. His senior sister was scared by the wind. So he lay down again, covered his senior sister with the blanket and comforted her. "Don't be afraid. Go to sleep. I have to get up early tomorrow to continue my journey." Then, under Wang Xing's comforting words, senior sister finally closed her eyes and fell into a peaceful sleep. Looking at the sleeping senior sister, Wang Xing thought about how, earlier that day, Uncle Master Li had come to ask them for help in catching ghosts. He remembered how senior sister had been so scared, huddling behind him. He hadn't expected senior sister, a cultivator at the nascent soul stage, to be afraid of ghosts. Suddenly, Wang Xing remembered what Master had once told him. It's also his junior brother's responsibility. Have you ever seen a ghost hunter like this? Holding a golden Buddha statue in his left hand, and a door god portrait in his right. He even wears a crucifix and garlic around his neck. He calls it a combination of Eastern and Western methods, but actually, he doesn't want to be like this. It turns out that his senior sister gave Wang Xing all these things before she left. After all, it was senior sister's intention. How could Wang Xing just throw it away? So he brought these things with him and followed Master Li. They arrived at their destination, but he didn't expect that this place was actually Master Ji's home in the secular world. No wonder Master Ji had been so secretive before. This has a bit of the smell of using power for personal gain. Before starting the ritual, Wang Xing also learned that the owner of this house was named Li Shishan. He was the elder brother of Master Li. Because he had been supporting Wudong for the past few years, Wudong had tacitly allowed them to help with the exorcism. But what puzzled Wang Xing was that although his master was wealthy, why would he choose to become a monk and cultivate the Tao? It turns out that before exorcising the ghost, Master Li had already discussed everything with them. The earlier events were just for show. He and senior brother Zhou were the real key figures in exorcising the ghost. This arrangement was mainly because others' understanding of cultivators was still stuck in depictions from movies. Therefore, although the disciples did the actual work, the praise and accomplishments still needed to be attributed to the master. At this moment, Wang Xing opened the door to a bedroom. Countless sinister spirits howled as they rushed out from inside. Two pairs of crimson eyes suddenly appeared from the darkness. Two ghosts materialized before Wang Xing. Wang Xing's face remained calm. He formed a hand seal and recited a chant. A blinding light erupted. In an instant, the ghosts in the room were completely eliminated. A moment later, Wang Xing went outside to meet senior brother Zhou. Senior brother Zhou said he took a turn. But just as he was about to speak, Wang Xing signaled him to be silent. Careful, walls have ears. Let's not talk about this for now. Go meet with Uncle Shi. No matter what, this is still Uncle Shi's home. If someone is really behind this, they can't just ignore it. Meanwhile, Uncle Li is facing a difficult situation. He's still holding up his sword to cast a spell. After all, everyone around is watching him. He can't just stop whenever he wants. Isn't this just about exorcising a ghost? Why is it taking so long? Why aren't they back yet? Are those two little guys reliable or not? Luckily, at this moment, Wang Sheng and senior brother Zhou finally returned. Uncle Li finally breathed a sigh of relief. He turned to ask the elder brother to help them. Prepare a quiet room to rest and recover your spirit. Soon, it was evening. Wang Sheng told his Shishu about the situation they encountered today. He also shared his own speculation. He suspected that it was likely another cultivator causing trouble. Shishu Li frowned after hearing this. This could be troublesome. As a reborn person, Wang Xing benefited from his previous life's experiences. His current knowledge is even broader than that of his martial uncle. Naturally, he also knows about some of the darker sides of the cultivation world. The events unfolding now may be due to the Li family's wealth, which has attracted some evil cultivators. Or perhaps Ji Shishan has offended someone, bringing retaliation from evil cultivators. At this point, martial Uncle Li, who had been lost in thought, finally lifted his head. He looked at Wang Xing and asked, Fei Yu, according to your opinion, what should we do? Wang Xing thought for a moment. If we act suddenly, it might provoke the other side to act recklessly. How about we do this, then after that, we do that. Half an hour later, Uncle Li and his elder brother were strolling around the manor. During their conversation, he asked his brother if he had offended anyone in recent years. Li Shishan replied that he had just been staying at home and hadn't offended anyone. Uncle Li told him to think carefully. It seemed that someone might be trying to harm his whole family, but Li Shishan insisted that it was absolutely not the case. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng was inside the house. He secretly listened to their conversation using his inner energy, and from their conversation, he learned that the Li family seemed to have done something wrong in the past. The manor's geomancy and his uncle's monastic life all seemed to be related to events from over a decade ago. Could these things be connected? The next day, after dealing with the ghost, Uncle Li prepared to return to the mountain to report. He told his older brother to let him know if anything else happened. But by evening, Wang Sheng and senior brother Zhou returned to the Li family estate. It turned out they had pretended to leave in order to make the other side let their guard down. Then they planned to return at night to lie in wait. Senior brother Zhou asked Wang Sheng how long they would have to wait. Wang Sheng said it might be until midnight, because midnight is when yang energy is at its weakest, and it's also when the evil cultivators who raise ghosts are most confident. Li Shushan's family is wealthy, with maids and security guards. Plus, they have a complete surveillance system with no blind spots. Even so, the ghosts they exorcised today numbered 70 or 80. This clearly isn't something that could be done in a day or two. If there wasn't an outsider causing trouble, there's no reason they wouldn't leave a trace. Therefore, the culprit behind releasing the ghosts is very likely an insider. That being said, the person who released the ghost had a heart as poisonous as a venomous toxin. This crooked, evil method of using spirits to drain people's life force and destroy entire families is simply intolerable by the heavens. At this point, senior brother Zhou asked Wang Sheng, "Should we just wait here? Is it useful?" Wang Sheng replied that if it's an inside job, to avoid unnecessary delays, he should make his move today. Now, it all depends on who has more patience between us. After saying that, Wang Sheng sat cross-legged. He began to release his spiritual sense. He covered the entire Li family manor. Seeing this, senior brother Zhou couldn't help but sigh. He didn't expect Fei Yu's spiritual sense to be able to cover the entire estate. Don't say my cultivation is inferior to his. Even at the same level, I'm afraid I couldn't do it. Suddenly, Wang Sheng's spiritual sense perceived someone walking towards the pavilion where Li Shushan was resting. At this time, outside Li Shushan's pavilion, a security guard was holding a flashlight, furtively looking around. Then he took a small tripod from his pocket. He bit his finger. The blood was dripped onto the small cauldron. In the next moment, a dark green smoke floated out of the cauldron. It transformed into a giant, vengeful ghost. It hovered above the security guard's head. Then, both the person and the ghost headed towards the attic where Li Shushan was. Just as the vengeful ghost extended its claws, ready to break down the door, the main door suddenly emitted a dazzling golden light. The vengeful spirit screamed in agony as it was struck by the golden light. The security guard was startled as well. It was a Wudang talisman. Li Shushan had indeed made preparations. But while the talisman can ward off ghosts, can it ward off a living person like me? With the resurgence of primordial qi, skeptical armed police officers encounter a true Taoist who can cultivate immortality. But he mistook the other party for a con artist. He became straightforward. As a result, he bumped into a real ghost and almost peed his pants. This was Wang Sheng's first time down the mountain to exorcise evil for someone. He killed 70 or 80 specters. But even the most powerful Taoist spells and talismans can only protect against malevolent ghosts. They can't protect against an inside man. Just as the security guard was about to push open the door, a cold gleam suddenly flashed. Wang Sheng thrust his sword toward the security guard, but what he didn't expect was that the security guard quickly reacted. He barged through the door and dodged the strike, and the vicious ghost that had been floating above the security guard's head had now appeared behind Wang Sheng. He raised a huge fist, smashing down hard at Wang Sheng, but it only hit an afterimage. The next second, Wang Sheng appeared before the vengeful spirit, drawing his sword and slashing at its neck. There was a clang. The sword felt like it struck stone, failing to injure the vengeful spirit in the slightest. Suddenly, a sound came from Li Shushan's room. Wang Sheng immediately realized something was wrong. He immediately stepped on the ghost's back, and jumped directly to the second floor. At this time, Li Shushan was waking up groggily. The security guard, holding a small cauldron, was about to kill him. Fortunately, Wang Sheng arrived in time and saved him, but the security guard didn't intend to stop. Leaping backward, he threw several poison needles at Li Shushan. At this critical moment, Wang Sheng circulated his true essence to control the needles. Then, with a swing of his long sword, he knocked all the needles down. Looking at the fallen needles, Wang Sheng discovered that the needles actually contained Inxia true essence. If they even slightly touched the old man's face, even a god couldn't save him. This heretic is truly vicious. The security guard, meanwhile, holding a small cauldron, said fiercely, "Wudang disciples, don't meddle." Wang Sheng pointed his sword at him, driving away evil spirits to harm people, using demonic evils to wreak havoc on the world. Seeing that harsh words were useless, the security guard decisively attacked and engaged in a fight with Wang Sheng. But after a few moves, the security guard suddenly stopped. He began to chant an incantation. The next second, the vengeful ghost broke through the window. It lunged straight at Li Shushan. Seeing this, Wang Sheng couldn't help but think, this person would rather drag me down with him than let the vengeful ghost take Li Shushan's life. What kind of grudge could there possibly be between them? But no matter what, saving people is the priority. Yusheng instantly arrived beside Ji Shirshan. With one swift strike, he forced the vengeful spirit back. At the same time, he was calculating in his mind. I sensed something was amiss and rushed over. Senior brother Zhou should have also noticed and is on his way. Then before senior brother arrives, I'll hold off this man and ghost. Seeing Wang Xing again protecting Li Shirshan, the security guard decided to hold nothing back. He immediately controlled the vengeful spirit to attack Wang Xing again. Wang Xing was not to be outdone. He dodged the vengeful spirit's attacks using the 7-star step, while looking for a chance to counterattack. Suddenly, Wang Xing leaped into the air, gathering all his true energy into his sword. He swung his sword down at the vengeful spirit. He cleaved the vengeful spirit in two. There was a loud bang. The small tripod in the security guard's hand exploded. Seeing this, Wang Xing pressed his advantage, unleashing 3 sword energies. The security guard didn't have time to dodge and was sent flying. As the security guard fell, the vengeful spirit gradually dissipated. But to his surprise, the security guard, who was already at the end of his rope, actually sacrificed his own soul, fusing with the vengeful spirit. Immediately, the vengeful spirit's body grew several times larger, and spikes grew all over it. A pile of skulls surrounded it. Seeing this, Wang Xing couldn't help but think, how many souls has that evil cultivator used? I just forged this vengeful spirit. Shouting towards the house, Fei Yu, are you okay? Wang Xing heard the voice and decisively jumped out of the window. He then threw Li Shirshan to senior brother Zhou, telling him to protect Li Shirshan, and take the Li family further away from here. Immediately after, he slashed at the vengeful spirit again. But the strength of Wen Yuan's sword doesn't lie in exorcising ghosts. It's not very effective against these ghosts. It's not as effective as using talismans like Shi Qianzhang and Lu Yunji do. Thinking this, Wang Xing immediately had an idea. He used the 7-star steps, dodging the vengeful ghost's attacks while shouting, Senior brother, quickly give me Master Uncle's talismans. Zhou Yinglong, hearing this, quickly searched for the talismans. Li Shirshan turned and instructed his subordinates, quickly, bring over the talismans from the other places. At this moment, Wang Xing, facing the increasingly ferocious ghost, had come up with a plan to deal with it. Since it couldn't be killed, he would wear it down. He immediately activated the 7-star step, creating several afterimages, and set up the 7-star sword formation, trapping the ghost in the middle. Use the spell to drain its soul power. Use the sword formation to trap its body. At this moment, senior brother Zhou finally sent the talisman. Wang Xing caught it in one hand. He prepared to use a ghost exorcising talisman to destroy the ghost. Wang Xing tossed the talisman pouch in his hand. Countless talismans flew out. Wang Xing used True Essence Sword Qi to pass through the talismans, stacking buffs. He launched a Sword Rain talisman attack at the vengeful spirit in the center of the formation. Then, the talisman struck the vengeful spirit. It immediately ignited into a fierce blaze. By the end, the vengeful spirit was completely engulfed in golden flames. It let out a painful wail. Wang Xing nodded slightly upon seeing this. The talisman was indeed effective. The evil cultivator in the attic should have lost all consciousness by now. Otherwise, the vengeful spirit wouldn't leave Mr. Li alone. Since that's the case, as long as we continue to exhaust it like this, we will definitely be able to eliminate the vengeful spirit. Wang Xing sensed these people rushing over and shouted urgently, Senior brother, stop them. Don't let them get involved. Give me 15 more minutes. This thing won't last much longer. Meanwhile, at the doorway, Li Shirshan was explaining to the chubby captain, there really are ghosts. They really aren't lying. But Captain Fat doesn't believe it at all. He bluntly says, what era is this? Where would ghosts come from? At that moment, there was a swoosh. Zhou Yinglong suddenly appeared beside him. Shan smiled and explained, my junior only needs 20 minutes to drive the evil spirit away. Everyone, please remain calm. However, Captain Pang only thought he was a conman. He was trying to deceive the old man. He ordered a few people to guard the side door. He was about to rush straight through the front door. Zhou Yinglong quickly moved to stop him. But the captain didn't just ignore the advice. He even drew his sidearm. He directly pressed the gun barrel against his forehead. Then, under the pretext of obstruction of official duties, he had him temporarily detained. The reason this overweight captain dared to do this was because, since the revival of energy, the government of Great Hua ordered that police must carry firearms when on duty. In special circumstances, they are allowed to fire. Zhou Yinglong, seeing that he couldn't stop these people, could only helplessly sigh. Let them in to open their eyes. But as soon as these police officers entered the door, they were so frightened by the sight in front of them that they collapsed to the ground. They all screamed in terror. There really are ghosts. And when the vengeful ghost saw the living, it immediately picked up a stone, and hurled it toward them. The stone was about to hit several people. Zhou Yinglong outside the door quickly broke free from his handcuffs. He swiftly moved and appeared in front of the chubby captain. He used a Tai Chi push to redirect the force. He threw the massive stone in another direction. He then turned and smiled. "Officers, the evil spirit is very agitated. Please, do not provoke it further." Upon hearing this, the fat captain was immediately dumbfounded. His subordinate asked what they should do now. This situation was beyond their ability to handle. The fat captain forced himself to stay calm and said, "What are you panicking for? First, report the situation here to headquarters. Everyone else, stay at your posts. Work with the Taoist inside to shoot at the evil spirit." Zhou Yinglong quickly spoke up to stop them. "Ordinary bullets can't hurt a vengeful spirit. They'll only enrage it. Ghosts are in. To subdue it, we need something with strong yang energy. Can we get some rooster blood? Black rooster blood would be best." Upon hearing this, the chubby team leader immediately sent someone to find some. But not long after, Wang Sheng ran out of talismans. Seeing the vengeful spirit charge at him again, he was momentarily at a loss. Luckily, at that moment, senior brother Zhou threw a large pile of rooster blood. It all landed on the vengeful spirit. Immediately after, they saw the vengeful spirit's thick scales gradually melt away. They turned into wisps of smoke. Seeing that the rooster blood really worked, everyone was extremely happy. But at this moment, the vengeful ghost wasn't completely defeated. Instead, its injuries had completely enraged it. It charged towards them. In a moment of urgency, Zhou Yinglong acted decisively. He summoned the true form Emperor Dharma body, blocking the vengeful ghost's attack, and blasting it away. But he, too, was sent flying several meters back. "But at least I created an opportunity for my junior brother." Wang Sheng leaped up, gathering all his true energy into his sword, and used the 7 stars sword technique to strike at the ghost's various acupoints. After completing the sword technique, 7 sword energies on the ghost's body instantly connected, then suddenly exploded, emitting a bright white light. The ghost was also annihilated in the white light, but not long after eliminating the vengeful ghost, Wang Sheng also collapsed due to the excessive consumption of his true energy. He momentarily lost strength and fainted. Although he didn't stay unconscious for long, he still felt somewhat weak when he woke up. After resting for a short while, his condition gradually recovered. After this battle, he gained unexpected rewards. "Now I'm standing before the door of the fetal mirror. It's been worthwhile." But just then, a knock came from outside the door. Wang Sheng opened the door and saw 2 people he didn't recognize. They claimed to be members of a special investigation team, specifically dealing with the vicious ghost incident. The woman's name was Mu Yu. The man is named Dinyo, and Ma Yue is still a fan of Wang Sheng. After getting Wang Sheng's approval, she immediately took out her phone and took a few pictures with him. Then, after Wang Sheng reminded her, she remembered there was something serious to discuss. She cleared her throat twice and said, "Sure enough." Wang Sheng received a video call shortly after. But when he clicked to answer, seeing the person on the other side, he was shocked, his mouth agape, and he called out, "Mistress, do you know those Taoist priests who have already left the secular world? Actually, it's possible to get married and have children. For example, Taoist priests at Wudong Mountain can." Looking at the woman on the other side of the video, Wang Sheng remembered the double ninth festival of his first year on the mountain. At that time, his master had dragged him to drink. Drunk, his master hazily told him, "If you want to have children, just have children. I am very open-minded. As long as you are wholeheartedly devoted to your wife, nothing will happen." Wang Sheng wondered why his master suddenly brought this up. His master, emboldened by alcohol, revealed an old story from the past. It turned out that Qin Jianzi had once been in love with a woman, but he faced opposition from his own master. At the time, he intended to reason with his master, but the woman, strong-willed, simply left. She had disappeared for over 10 years with no news. It wasn't until the year before last that someone sent 2 photos. That was when Qin Yanzi learned that he actually had a child, about the same age as Wang Sheng and the others, and the woman in front of him was the same as the one in the photos, his master's wife. Wang Sheng saw that the other person was silent, and hesitantly called out, "Master's wife." The woman on the other side of the video let out a light sigh. "You can call me Auntie, but there's something I'd like to ask of you. Could you pass a message to your master for me? Tell him, if he still cares about his daughter, he should come see me as soon as possible." Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately thought of the possibility that his junior sister might be entangled with some cultivators. He immediately took out his phone, and dialed his master's number. Then he switched to speakerphone, feeling pleased with himself, thinking, as long as he could speak directly, His master would definitely find a way to win his master's wife's heart back. But just a moment later, the familiar prompt tone came from the other end of the line. Sorry, the number you dialed cannot be reached at the moment. Wang Sheng froze for a moment. He quickly explained to his Shirmu, master's wife, it's probably a poor signal at master's place. I'll contact my senior sister. Please don't worry. Saying this, Wang Sheng sent a message to his senior sister. I asked my senior sister where the master went. My senior sister quickly replied with an emoji. She didn't say a word. I took a photo of the letter and sent it to you. You can look at it yourself. Wang Sheng looked at the contents of the letter. It turns out that the master is about to advance to the Golden Core stage. He needs to go into seclusion for a period of time. So he ran off to Zhongnan Mountain. He even said that when he comes back, he'll show them off and take them flying. Master, you're truly destined for a fox's life. The timing of your promotion is just too perfect. Thinking of this, he sighed. He briefly explained the situation to senior sister. Then he walked out of the room. He asked when Ma Yue would depart. My senior sister will also participate in this mission. Let's go back to Wudong and pick her up. At the same time, Wang Sheng was also thinking to himself. Master's wife and daughter are in trouble. Naturally, my senior sister won't stand by idly. But it's surprising that the mistress took the initiative to contact us. It seems like things are really serious. But even if it's a den of dragons and tigers, I also want to rescue junior sister. The group then prepared to go to Mount Wudong to pick up senior sister. Wang Sheng also learned from Ma Yue, and the death was extremely tragic. Wang Sheng looked at the photo of the security guard's death, and the mark on his arm that resembled the Taiji symbol. He concluded that the security guard likely died from the yin-yang bloodthirsty worm. This type of worm has a yin and yang aspect that respond to each other. Ancient texts record that they can enhance the spiritual awareness of the person cursed, and they can also cause the victim to die from a distance of thousands of miles, and this symbol appears to be a Taiji pattern. It's highly likely that it's the emblem of the organization behind him, so he told Mu Yu to investigate from this aspect, and starting from the yin-yang gu Taiji pattern, and the wooden tripod artifact he destroyed before, these three things are enough to prove that a certain heretical cultivation organization has reached a considerable scale. I'm afraid they need to contact the major sects as soon as possible. After listening, Mu Yu also realized the seriousness of the situation. She quickly asked Wang Sheng to wait a moment. She would go and inform her colleagues immediately. Wang Sheng stood there with a grave expression. It involved secrets from his past life. After all, he couldn't completely explain it. He only hoped they could prevent this before it happened. After all, this time they were facing the yin-yang cult. In his past life, it was an evil organization that nearly overturned the entire world. Wang Sheng also had to be cautious. The next day, Wang Sheng successfully received the senior sister's call, before officially setting off to rescue the junior sister. In the car, Mao Yu looked at Mu Guanyuangshuan, her eyes sparkling. She didn't speak. The fairy is really beautiful, her figure is great, her skin is fair, she has no flaws at all. Seeing that Mao Yu was getting a little too excited, Wang Sheng quickly explained, Senior sister, he's the Shenyang subordinate. He's not a bad person. The senior sister hummed in response while eating. These words were somewhat disheartening to Mu Yu. However, along the way, Wang Sheng finally learned from Mu Yu the true nature of that special investigation team. In ancient times, martial heroes caused chaos with their power. Immortals could overturn the world with their laws. Now, the cultivation civilization is rising again. The secular world naturally needs privileged organizations to maintain order. The Special Investigation Team is led by the Master's wife, and is one of the privileged departments established by the Great Hua Kingdom, to address matters concerning the cultivation world. They are specifically responsible for overseeing the cultivation world. They mediate the conflicts between the cultivation world and the secular world, but because this incident involves their leader's own daughter, they're not in a position to say much. They hope Wang Sheng won't mind. Wang Sheng smiled and said it was fine. This matter is also a private one for us. After all, she's not just your team leader's daughter. She's also our junior sister. Hearing this, Mu Yu and Daniel were both stunned for a moment. After reacting, they guessed the relationship between their team leader and Qin Yanzi Dao Chang. Mu Yu was incredibly excited. Unexpectedly, there's such a huge piece of gossip. Soon after, the group finally arrived at their mission location. It is also the university where the junior sister is studying. Next, it will be up to Wang Sheng and the senior sister. The young man became the enemy of all the boys as soon as he entered university. This was because he not only had a beautiful senior sister as his official girlfriend, but also had other pretty senior sisters throwing themselves at him. According to the information provided by Mao Yu, a cultivator has infiltrated the university campus. They are spreading cultivation techniques in a manner similar to pyramid schemes. My junior sister is one of the many students who were drawn in. Now that the world's vital energy has just recovered, cultivation remains a secret to the outside world. To widely promote cultivation at this time, it's hard to say they don't have ulterior motives. What Wang Sheng and the others need to do is to disguise themselves as a couple of exchange students and enter the campus, to find out the whereabouts of the other cultivators and rescue my junior sister. Soon after moving in, senior sister sent a message. She found traces of primordial energy residue in junior sister's room. It should have been caused by a talisman. She asked Wang Sheng what to do next. Wang Sheng advised senior sister not to alarm the snake for now. If possible, try to create an opportunity to get to know junior sister first. Senior sister quickly sent over an emoji. It looks like she's getting into character. They were having a great time. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng was looking at a photo of his junior sister. His junior sister's name is Tue Wen. She is a sophomore majoring in economics and trade. According to the information provided by Ma Yue, a cultivator had infiltrated the university campus to spread his teachings. The junior sister was one of those who was deceived. As a result, she had a falling out with the mistress and lost contact with her. Perhaps it's for this reason that Shen Yang had to contact Shifu, hoping he can help rescue Xiao Shimi. Afterwards, Wang Sheng and Shiji came to the student cafeteria. They originally planned to have Shiji go up and talk to him, but this proved difficult for Shiji, who isn't good with words. Wang Sheng encouraged Shiji not to feel pressured. She's Shifu's daughter. Just don't treat her like an outsider. Suddenly, Wang Sheng noticed that his junior sister had already manifested true essence. This true essence was very similar to the one he cultivated in his past life. Using a miscellaneous martial art, it seemed that things were not so simple. So, he told his senior sister that the plan had changed. He would go try making contact with his junior sister first. Upon hearing this, his senior sister let out a sigh of relief. Wang Sheng also turned his head and slowly moved closer to his junior sister. He was about to speak and scold her, but suddenly, he heard someone behind him calling his name. Startled, his phone fell to the ground. Yu Xing turned around to look. It was none other than his senior, Shen Qianlin. He was momentarily stunned. He didn't expect that in the next second, his senior. She threw herself into his arms. Her face was full of excitement as she said, "It's really you. How did you get here?" Seeing this scene, the senior sister's face instantly darkened. At the same time, the surrounding boys looked at Wang Sheng in shock. Then it turned into anger. Who is this guy? Senior Shen actually has time to develop a little lover. I just saw that guy. He seems to have a girlfriend. I can't stand this. Kill him. Seeing the surrounding guys about to rush over and beat Wang Sheng up, Senior quickly explained. This is my junior from high school. He once saved my life. It turned out that in the previous life, the senior was disabled due to a car accident, and after Wang Sheng was reborn, he appeared at the scene in advance to help her through the crisis. Although it involved some small risks, but now seeing her in good health, Wang Sheng felt it was all worth it. At that moment, Wang Sheng suddenly placed his hand on the senior's shoulder, smiling as he greeted her. Senior's face turned slightly red, but in fact, Wang Sheng wasn't groping her. He was sensing the spiritual energy on her. After realizing she had no spiritual energy, he confirmed that her relationship with the junior sister had nothing to do with it. At that moment, someone suddenly asked from the side, "Hey, you dropped your phone." Wang Sheng turned his head and looked. It turned out to be his junior sister who picked up his dropped phone and returned it to him. He quickly took the phone and said thank you, and enthusiastically offered, "Would you mind adding me on WeChat, classmate? As a thank you, I'll treat you to dinner later." But his junior sister politely refused. Seeing this, the senior sister couldn't help but cover her mouth and giggle. "What? You didn't purposely throw your phone behind her, did you?" Wang Sheng gave an awkward smile. He quickly changed the subject. He introduced his girlfriend to the senior. He suggested they get to know each other. However, the senior looked at him with a grim expression. It was as if she were saying, "Didn't you go to check on junior sister? Who is this woman? Is senior sister in a higher position than junior sister? How should I communicate with her?" Wang Sheng was covered in cold sweat. He advised senior sister to calm down. Then Wang Sheng led senior sister and junior sister to the small grove. He briefly explained the situation to senior sister. He said he was here to investigate some unsettled elements hiding in the school. He hoped that senior sister could provide some clues. When senior sister heard unsettled elements, she thought for a moment, and felt that there shouldn't be such people in the school. Then Wang Sheng asked again, "Has anyone invited you recently to join any strange clubs? For example, martial arts, magic, longevity, or even immortality?" When asked about this, the senior suddenly remembered a poster she had seen before. It seemed related to what Wang Sheng had mentioned. She immediately sent it to Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng looked at the slogan on the poster, and felt that this was probably what they were looking for. He immediately stood up from the ground. Tell senior sister this, it's better to ask more questions. I will have someone secretly protect you. From now on, just pretend you've never seen me or senior sister. Senior sister nodded. She watched Wang Sheng and senior sister leave, but her back looked unexpectedly lonely. She thought, is that the senior sister he kept mentioning in his texts? No wonder he was so reluctant to leave the mountain. If I hadn't met your senior sister today, I really would have thought you were going to become a Taoist priest. The revival of the primordial chi of heaven and earth, the era of universal cultivation begins. But I didn't expect that even unspoken rules had spread to the cultivation world. After learning from my senior sister about the Supernatural Inspiration Club, Wang Sheng and his senior sister began their investigation. That night, in the small woods outside the school, a dozen or so students formed a circle. They surrounded a blonde-haired boy in the middle. The blonde-haired boy was still brainwashing them. Don't complain about the high membership fee. Everything requires investment. Right now, you are investing in yourselves. Only in this way can you truly reach the peak. Begin your training. Meanwhile, Wang Sheng and his senior sister were standing in a nearby tree, their cultivation enhancing their senses. They had heard the conversation clearly. Wang Sheng couldn't help but mutter, are they spreading the Tao or running a pyramid scheme? The leader did possess cultivation, but if it was just about cultivation, these people haven't violated any rules. After some thought, Wang Sheng decided to send the photos to Mu Yu first. Let them investigate. At this time, his senior sister suddenly reminded Wang Sheng to look over there. Wang Sheng looked up and asked his senior sister, anything? His senior sister shook her head. Wang Sheng looked towards the direction his senior sister pointed, puzzled. He saw the blonde-haired guy from before. He was grinning mischievously and whispering something to a girl. Wang Sheng listened to their conversation. He was speechless. Now even cultivation has unspoken rules. Then he told his senior sister to keep watching. He went to check it out. Soon, the blonde guy took the girl to a deserted alley. He reached out with a lecherous hand and said, if you do as I say, forget about the membership fee. I can even get you extra cultivation techniques and pills. The girl blushed, somewhat hesitant. At that moment, a furious shout suddenly came from up ahead. Shameless things. Disgraceful. An old man, his face filled with anger, walked out from a small alley. The guy with yellow hair quickly explained. Second uncle. No, Elder Gu. This is the person I just started dating. I just wanted to bring them over to meet you. However, before he could finish speaking, another voice suddenly came from above. I didn't expect that even the Super Spirit Society would resort to shady tactics. Wang Sheng arrived with his sword, descending from the sky. He instantly unleashed several sword energies, killing the old man in an instant. Seeing that even his second uncle, a cultivator at the gathering spirit realm, was killed instantly, the yellow-haired man immediately fled. Then, a cold light flashed. Wang Sheng's sword was at the yellow-haired man's neck. He demanded that the yellow-haired man reveal the location of their hideout. The next morning, Wang Sheng beat Huang Mao up badly and came to a small courtyard. In the small courtyard, for elderly men and women were drinking tea and chatting. But at that moment, Wang Sheng suddenly walked in and greeted them. Good morning, esteemed super spiritual elders, he said. His identity was revealed in a single sentence. The old men exchanged glances. They immediately joined forces immediately used their combined strength to stop what they were doing. The table was thrown towards Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng remained completely unflustered. With a single strike, he split the stone table in half. Then he unleashed several sword chi. The three old men were instantly defeated. At this moment, the old woman hiding behind them suddenly threw a flame talisman. It flew towards Wang Sheng, but unfortunately, he only hit Wang Sheng's afterimage. In the next second, Wang Sheng appeared behind her. He immediately struck her with a hand chop, knocking her out. After dealing with the four so-called super primates, Wang Sheng left the scene to Ma Yue. When he returned to school, Ma Yue called again. She said those rogue cultivators had confessed. The founder of the Supernatural Society calls himself the Holy Flame Bearer. They've hired practitioners from the realms of numbers as guardians. Now, they've made a name for themselves in the community. As for the junior sister, because of her wealthy family background, she holds a position similar to a mascot or a small leader inside. Wang Sheng asked Mao Yu to send him their information. He would keep an eye on their movements. At the same time, he was also somewhat puzzled. Organizations like the Sacred Fire Transcendent Society are practically criminal gangs with a history of spiritual cultivation. What exactly are their goals? Are they simply trying to grow their power and amass wealth? Wang Sheng turned his head and saw his senior sister pouting at him, as if she were saying, Junior brother is a bad guy, he won't let me fight. Wang Xing smiled. He picked up a potato chip and put it in his senior sister's mouth. It's time for senior sister to find junior sister. In the evening, the two of them met with junior sister. They explained the general situation to her, as well as their identities. But junior sister didn't believe them at all. My father has been dead for 20 years. Where could there be a disciple? Wang Xing didn't explain further. He directly handed her a photo that master had kept close to him. In the photo were her and her mother. Then Wang Xing played a video of his previous video call with his Shenyang, master's wife, for his junior sister. Learning the truth, his junior sister couldn't accept it for a moment. She covered her face and wept. Seeing this, her senior sister was immediately at a loss. She didn't know how to comfort her. Meanwhile, in the bushes not far away, someone had a crossbow aimed at them. A shot was fired immediately. Fortunately, the senior sister reacted quickly. She casually waved her hand and easily blocked it. Seeing that the first strike failed, the attacker decisively fled. Wang Xing told the senior sister to protect the junior sister while he chased after him. At the same time, he thought to himself, these sneaky people finally couldn't hold back, huh? The world's vital energy is awakening, and everyone is entering the era of cultivation. There is actually a cult-like organization. They are recruiting people at the university under the guise of a club. After Wang Xing discovered and dismantled one of their hideouts, his junior sister was suddenly assassinated. Seeing the mastermind finally appear, Wang Xing informed Mao Yu while chasing them. Mao Yu received the message and immediately ordered all teams to prepare for action. Seal off all exits from the campus. We absolutely cannot let them escape. Soon after, Wang Xing used a burst of sword energy to knock him to the ground, but unexpectedly, as soon as he got back up, he threw several poison needles at him. Wang Xing easily deflected them with a wave of his hand, but wisps of poisonous smoke rose from his hand. Those silver needles were actually poisoned. Immediately, he saw the other person, trembling as she took out a pill and swallowed it. Seeing her continuously take out pills and a poison needle, that could temporarily incapacitate someone at the half-step embryonic stage, Wang Xing realized that this woman was no ordinary person. He decided he must capture her and extract information. He instantly appeared behind her, gripping her neck. He directly lifted her up. He crippled her entire meridian system and cultivation. Then he casually tossed her to the ground. He left the rest to his martial ant. But just then, he suddenly sensed a murderous aura. It was a murderous aura that conflicted with Taoist techniques. Wang Xing turned his head to look. He saw two masked individuals, one tall and one short, appearing not far away. They were slowly walking towards him. This woman stole something that was supposed to be ours. Can you hand it over to us? We won't treat you unfairly. Wang Xing looked at the patterns on their necks. He immediately realized they were from the Yin-Yang sect. He decisively stepped in front of the woman and replied. Upon hearing this, the shorter of the two men scratched his head. Do you know you've just angered the last person you should have? As soon as the words were spoken, a murderous aura began to materialize around the two. It charged directly toward Wang Xing. Wang Xing wasn't about to back down. He gathered his sword energy and shattered the aura. He coldly said again, I said no, and I mean it. As he spoke, sword energy surrounded Wang Xing. In an instant, he dispersed the approaching murderous aura. This also caught the tall man's interest. He thrust his sword into the ground. Then he charged forward. He swung a hand blade and struck Wang Xing's afterimage. When he missed, the tall man immediately changed direction. He struck toward Wang Xing's real body again. Wang Xing hadn't expected that the opponent could actually keep up with his 7-star footwork. It seems the other party is not just relying on brute force. They indeed have some real skills. They unleashed several sword energy strikes in retaliation. After exchanging a few moves, Wang Xing realized that if the other party wasn't fighting him barehanded, he would probably be unable to resist now. However, while the two were locked in combat, another short man actually prepared to take the woman away. Wang Xing muttered, oh no. He immediately launched a fierce attack on the tall man. He clearly intended to settle the fight with one decisive blow. The tall man, indeed falling for it, began charging up a powerful attack. But Wang Xing seized the opportunity, turning to charge towards the short man. The short man dared not fight head-on, quickly turning to defend. He was knocked back several meters. Wang Xing picked the woman up from the ground. Looking at the two masked figures in front of him, he secretly sighed. To have a practitioner at the fetal foundation stage during the ambush phase, the Yin-Yang sect is indeed no ordinary sect. But this woman is an important lead to the supernatural society. I can't let her die here. At this moment, the tall man suddenly spoke. Had enough fun. Then, with a casual grab, The sword he just stuck in the ground automatically flew into his hand. He held the sword before him and coldly said, "Let's make this quick." With that, he leaped into the air, slashing with his sword. His killing intent transformed into 3 giant serpents, lunging toward Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng scooped up the woman and hastily dodged. At the same time, he also realized that the blade and the murderous aura complemented each other, making it impossible to block directly. However, while it's easy to dodge a direct attack, a sneak attack is hard to defend against. Just as Wang Sheng was dodging the tall man's attack, he was suddenly ambushed. It turned out that the short man, the sixth one, had sneak attacked him. Wang Sheng was unable to dodge in time and could only take the hit. He was blasted away directly. At that moment, the tall man suddenly appeared in front of him, and swung his sword straight down towards his face. At this critical moment, a branch wrapped in true essence suddenly flew over, and struck the tall man's hand, the one holding the sword. Then, a pair of jade-like white hands appeared in front of the tall man's chest. With a powerful palm strike, the tall man was sent flying. So it was senior sister who came. Wang Sheng also breathed a sigh of relief. He took the branch that senior sister handed him and indicated that they were the bad guys. Upon hearing this, senior sister's gaze immediately became sharp. She charged forward and started fighting directly. Using Tai Chi, her right hand manifested the Tai Chi symbol. It blocked the evil energy attack from the short man. At this moment, the tall man behind unexpectedly tried to launch a surprise attack. Wang Sheng charged forward, holding a branch. The tall man hurriedly drew his sword and slashed at Wang Sheng's afterimage. The two immediately became tangled in a fierce battle. With no more distractions behind her, the senior sister began to fight with full force. Her true energy transformed into hands, striking the short man. She sent him flying, spitting blood. But at that moment, the shorter man set his sights on the junior sister. He condensed his evil energy into a pair of large hands and grabbed at the junior sister. The junior sister was terrified and screamed. Luckily, at the critical moment, the senior sister promptly unfurled the Yin-Yang 2 Qi Grand Righteousness Array, blocking the evil energy from outside. Seeing that they couldn't defeat the shorter man, she signaled to the taller man to leave quickly. If they didn't leave, they would all die here today. The tall man immediately unleashed a sword strike. He forced Wang Sheng to retreat. Then he leaped into the air. Before leaving, he didn't forget to leave a parting shot. "Boy, your swordsmanship isn't bad. I'll have a 300-round rematch with you another day." His senior sister couldn't stand it. She charged forward, ready to slap them again. But Wang Sheng stopped me. "Senior sister, our priority is protecting our junior sister. Mu Yu already received the intel. Next is their mission." But when Wang Sheng turned around, senior sister was teary-eyed, as if she was saying, "I'm useless. I could have saved them. Master is definitely going to scold me." Wang Sheng comforted his senior sister, patting her head. "Senior sister, not only did you defeat the enemy, you also protected junior sister. That's amazing." After comforting his senior sister, Wang Sheng looked at the branch in his hand and thought, "But after this fierce battle, my junior sister can understand something, right?" Following that, because of the haunting at the Li family, the special investigation team began to respond to the Yin-Yang sect. But even so, they still failed to successfully apprehend the two evil cultivators. They only killed one of them. The female cultivator captured by Wang Sheng was named Yuan Qiyu. She was originally an outer disciple of the medicine god Valley. 6 months ago, Wei Qiyu was bribed by the Yin-Yang sect to steal the sect's secret manuals. After the incident was exposed, he was pursued and targeted for elimination. Just as he was about to be caught, he was saved by the Flamebearers. He then joined the Supernatural Society. This is how the feud began. Last night's incident stemmed from this. But for Wang Sheng and the others, this is just the beginning of the trouble. After learning the whole story, the master's wife slapped the junior sister directly. With a tone full of frustration, she said, "How did I end up with such an idiot like you? Are you really this stupid, or are you doing this on purpose? Have all those years of learning been for nothing? If it weren't for those two, you would have been dead by now, do you know that?" As she spoke, a few tears involuntarily formed at the corner of the mistress's eye. She raised her hand, preparing to strike again. But this time, Wang Sheng stopped her. "Mistress, please calm down first." Junior sister, she was also deceived by others. The mistress gritted her teeth. She let go of Wang Sheng's hand. She turned and was about to leave, and instructed the team members guarding the door to give her the results of the junior sister's interrogation within 2 hours. In response, Wang Sheng could only sigh helplessly. As the saying goes, one cannot blame the father for everything. The master and mistress were not entirely blameless in this matter. He then smiled and squatted down in front of the junior sister to comfort her. Junior sister, once you clarify everything, come back with us to the mountain. Experience true cultivation. By the way, meet your biological father. Upon hearing this, junior sister stopped crying. Perhaps the mistress also wanted junior sister to stay away from the vortex. She readily agreed to Wang Sheng's suggestion. Mount Wudong is filled with pure spiritual energy. With the warm hospitality of their fellow disciples, junior sister's mood gradually improved. But when evening came, she still couldn't help but ask Wang Sheng, "Senior brother, when will my father be back?" Wang Sheng thought for a moment. That's hard to say. Master's breakthrough to the Golden Core realm is a heavenly precipice. Not so easy to cross. What's wrong? If you have anything, tell me. And senior sister. The junior sister lowered her head and said softly, "I am trying to atone for my crimes now. I don't want to make things difficult for my mom. I also don't want to affect her work. If possible, I want to quickly learn some skills and work for the Special Investigation Unit." When Wang Sheng heard that the junior sister had this intention, he felt that their efforts to protect her were not in vain. He immediately expressed that cultivating the way emphasizes first cultivating virtue, then cultivating the heart, and finally cultivating the way and the law. Your father taught me this. Cultivating the way is about pursuing the realm of the Tao, not powerful spells. Your own Tao is the foundation. Do not reverse the order. Do not confuse the focus. After speaking, Wang Sheng turned around, holding the bowl and plate, preparing to leave. At the same time, he was thinking to himself. Although he had already pulled away from the whirlpool, his junior sister still had unresolved feelings. He hoped the master would return soon, and warm his junior sister with a steady yet loving kindness. He also wondered how the special investigation team was progressing. Meanwhile, at a certain university dormitory, a bespectacled man is surfing the internet. He's looking for fun games. Suddenly, he sees a game called Saint Fire. A prompt tells him to click to enter. The world's spiritual energy is revived, and the cultivation civilization rises again. A disowned disciple from Longhu Mountain is announcing to the whole country online that he will publicly auction a Celestial Master's talisman. He temporarily ends his dealings with the outside world. Wang Sheng had no other concerns. The next day, he continued his cultivation, aiming to break through to the embryo formation stage. The gathering spirit stage is about using one's spiritual sense to comprehend the world. It is the beginning of merging oneself with the world. The embryo formation stage allows one to control the connection with the world at will. It involves drawing vital energy from the heavens and earth. When the inner and outer cycles of heaven and earth connect, the embryo formation stage is fully realized. How to complete the perfect and flawless inner circuit is the direction Wang Sheng is currently striving for. However, at that moment, he suddenly heard Brother Zhou's voice. He opened the door, and sure enough, it was Brother Zhou. Accompanying him was Taoist Gao Shixing. Wang Sheng hurriedly bowed to Uncle Master Gao. This time, Uncle Master Gao had come because he had heard that Wang Sheng was focusing on swordsmanship. He was prepared to offer him some guidance. This made Wang Sheng can't help but sigh. Back then, he came to the mountain with the intention of apprenticing to Master Gao. He never expected that by chance, he would end up meeting his master and senior sister instead. Life is probably like this. Between gains and losses, there's more than just a single marvel. After watching the 7-star sword formation demonstrated by Wang Sheng, Master Gao stepped forward to offer his feedback. Your swordsmanship is profound, and it's not the same path as mine. I can't really offer guidance. However, Wudong has passed down a set of 7-star sword techniques since its founding. It has many differences from your 7-star sword formation. You should watch closely. After saying that, Master Gao began demonstrating the 7-star sword techniques. Wang Sheng looked on, his face filled with shock. Although this sword technique shares some similarities with the 7-star sword formation, but they are not the same swordsmanship. Xing Kuei firmly guards the center. Xing sweeps in all directions. Senior brother Gao truly lives up to his reputation as a master who has immersed himself in the way of the sword for 2 or 3 decades. Compared to him, my understanding is too shallow. Master's studies are too broad, not specializing in one path. Senior brother has followed the pure path of the sword cultivator. With his guidance, I'm sure I can improve even further. So, after senior brother Gao finished his demonstration, Wang Sheng immediately approached to ask for advice. He hoped that senior brother Gao could guide him in his cultivation. However, senior brother Gao humbly said, "You and I are equals. At this moment, your swordsmanship is not inferior to mine. Why don't you try a few moves?" Upon seeing this, the younger junior sister in the room widened her eyes in excitement. She asked in disbelief, "Senior brother, is he really that powerful?" The senior sister smiled and nodded. Since that day, senior uncle Gao would come here every few days to spar with Wang Sheng. They would complement each other's swordsmanship. In these past few days, Wang Sheng has also gained a lot from it. Until this day, when the two were halfway through cutting, a hearty laugh suddenly came from outside the door. You two are cutting something, but don't injure yourselves in this struggle. Wang Sheng and senior brother Gao both turned to look. Senior brother Gao exclaimed in surprise, Master, why have you come? Then, they heard someone laugh while stroking his beard. Your Shu and Sherbua said, that Qin Yanzi fellow got lucky and found an unparalleled legendary sword. I have spent my life studying the sword. Wang Sheng quickly bowed and greeted the master, but inside, he was extremely flustered. Master's teacher. That must be the former sect leader, the highest-ranking elder in the mountain. The master smiled. He told Wang Sheng to relax. Then he sat down on a nearby stone chair. He began to instruct Wang Sheng and the other person. You two are too fixated on the sword. Don't neglect the Tao. Spar as you may, but don't hurt each other. The more rigid, the easier it is to break. A single misstep could injure the other's Tao foundation. Immediately, Wang Sheng and senior brother Gao continued to spar. At the same time, they were thinking to themselves. In the past life, the heavenly ranking was said to include all the top experts in the cultivation world. But elders like Master Yi rarely showed themselves. Naturally, he was not on the list to receive his guidance. It's simply the fortune of someone like me, a junior. At this moment, the master began to guide Wang Sheng from the side. The heavens and earth never had me. But I take my place in this tiny corner to exist. The heavens and earth should have me. To merge my heart, soul, and spirit with this life, receiving the master's guidance. At this moment, Wang Sheng seemed to have an epiphany. In an instant, the surrounding vital energy gathered towards him. He simply took a deep breath. The vital energy then entered his body through his 7 orifices. It ultimately reached its peak. Wang Sheng let out a loud shout and broke through to the minor success of the fetal formation stage. After the breakthrough, Wang Sheng could feel his spiritual consciousness growing continuously. His true essence also became more refined. This should be the fetus formation realm. But the immediate priority is still to consolidate the realm. I need to prepare for breaking through to the golden core. At this moment, the elder looked at Wang Sheng, who was sitting cross-legged to consolidate his realm. He condensed a stream of true essence in his hand. He pressed it directly onto Wang Sheng's crown. Seeing this, senior uncle Gao immediately understood. The master intends to leave some guidance for him. He then took the initiative to take his leave. Soon after, the master spoke again. Focus your mind. Calm your heart. Concentrate on the Tao. I have practiced the sword for many years, and today I pass this way on to you. I hope you will comprehend it well. The 6 realms of swordsmanship. The first 3 realms are sword shapes. They form the foundation of the sword Tao. Any sword cultivator with some accomplishments usually first comprehends these 3 steps, then progresses further. The 4th realm, sword control, requires selecting a sword embryo. One must nourish it day and night with one's own spiritual intent to cultivate the flying sword technique. The 5th realm is heart sword. The sword is abandoned without being wielded. The tangible can transform into the intangible, endlessly extending. It can also be sharp beyond compare. As for forging the sword in the 6th realm, it is with the heart as the soul of the sword, and the Tao body as the bone of the sword. Once drawn, it commands the world. Soon after, Wang Sheng opens his eyes again. He was reflecting on what the elder had just taught him about the 6 realms of the swordsmanship. Perhaps it isn't the end of the sword path, but it has already pointed out the long journey ahead of him. From now on, he would take his time to experience it. At this moment, the voice of the elder echoed again in his mind. I will give you a portion of my sword intent. Truly comprehend it. This was actually the elder's Tao realm inheritance. Wang Sheng couldn't hide his excitement and widened his eyes. Then he fainted. Luckily, senior sister appeared in time and caught him. She then gestured for junior sister to remain silent. Holding Wang Sheng, she walked towards the room. Meanwhile, junior sister gradually turned speechless. Excited, she picked up her phone to capture the precious moment of senior sister princess carrying second senior brother. Afterward, Wang Sheng entered the fetal formation stage to receive. I finally woke up after sleeping for a whole day, but what he didn't expect was the sword intent the master had casually given him. The gentle and strong, yin and yang, spring and autumn, constant change, all can be called the 2 instruments. The master only passed on the sword intent. Because Wang Sheng had already entered the realm of sword momentum, he unexpectedly obtained the incredibly profound 2 instruments sword technique. He also understood the path he should take in the future. In just 20 days after returning to the mountain, Wang Sheng had already made significant progress. on the path of swordsmanship. From now on, the sword would be his treasure. He subconsciously asked, where are they selling the Celestial Master's talismans? How much is it? Is there only the first and second volumes? As soon as the words left his mouth, he realized he had overstepped. This isn't like the shabby days of his past life. What use is a Taoist talisman now? So he quickly cleared his throat and asked to ease the awkwardness. What's the reaction from Mount Longhu? You've already made contact, right? While flipping through the materials, Mao Yu replied. And we've also confirmed the identity of the Holy Flame Bearer. It's a former disciple of Dragon Tiger Mountain, Dao Hao Qianqing. He once studied under Daozhang Tianjing of Dragon Tiger Mountain. A year ago, he was caught attempting to steal the Heavenly Master's talisman, the Mengxia scroll. After injuring a junior disciple, he escaped. Now, Daozhang Tianjing has come with people. But other sects will probably send people over. Wang Xing subconsciously thought after hearing this. The other party's Daoist name is Qianqing, and he is a disciple of Heavenly Righteous Daoist Master. Could he be Shi Qianzhang's senior brother? As for other sects sending people over, it's not surprising. After all, the Heavenly Master's secret is the foundation of Longhu Mountain. There are certainly many sects secretly coveting it, and this is precisely what Mu Yu and the others are worried about. If this gets out of hand, I'm afraid, the entire cultivation world will be in trouble. To be on the safe side, they can only ask Wang Sheng for help in stabilizing the situation. But this matter is too significant. Wang Sheng can only say he'll try his best. If the Dao masters of various sects step in later, he and his senior sister won't be able to say anything. Then it seems we can only ask the master to step in. So, not long after, Wang Sheng arrived at Mount Zhongnan. To his surprise, as soon as he reached the foot of the mountain, he encountered an old Taoist priest. The old Taoist immediately asked him if he was a disciple of Qinjianzi. Wang Sheng respectfully replied, "May I ask, senior, have you ever met my master, Qinjianzi?" Hearing this, the old Taoist picked up his phone and tapped a few times. Then, he sent a voice message in a chat group. Has anyone seen Daoist Qin Yan? His disciple, Wang Feiyu, has come looking for him. Soon, someone replied in the group. It seems Daoist Qin Yan is at Daoist Jinyan's place. And Daoist Jinyan quickly responded as well. What's the matter? He's with me. Where is Feiyu now? Wang Xing recognized it was a woman's voice. I immediately realized that this quiet cloud Daoist was a female cultivator. Kuan Dao is an honorific title for female cultivators. Thinking about this, a scene appeared in his mind. I have a feeling there's a bit of a vast prairie vibe coming from Master's wife. The young man originally came to Zhongnan Mountain to find his master, who was in seclusion, to break through. Unexpectedly, he discovered his master's rival in love, and the two were living together. At this time, Wang Sheng had already arrived at Quiet Cloud Daoist's residence, led by the old Daoist. But what puzzled him was that he had heard Quiet Cloud Daoist's cultivation and aptitude were both extraordinary. Why wasn't he on the heavenly ranking in his past life? However, since Master chose this place, Quiet Cloud Daoist must be a Daoist friend deeply trusted by him. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the courtyard. Has Feiyu arrived? You can walk straight along the small path on the west side of the yard. That will lead you to my place. Wang Xing followed the sound and arrived at the west side of the yard. This must be where Daoist Jing Yun cultivates. You absolutely must not disturb senior brother Qinjianzi right now. What brings you to see him this time? It turned out to be Daoist Jing Yun, who had come out from the courtyard. Moreover, his strength had apparently reached the void core realm. Wang Xing recounted the situation in detail to Daoist Jing Yun. Upon learning the full story, Daoist Jing Yun was also somewhat troubled. In this situation, you two juniors are indeed finding it difficult to appease the elders of those sects. Judging by Shi Shu Jingyun's expression, could she also have feelings for Master? Suddenly, a loud boom came from ahead. Above the place where Qinjianzi was secluded, a large mass of thunderclouds gathered. Wang Sheng was overjoyed. It's a heavenly tribulation. Master has broken through to the golden core. Junior Marshal Uncle Jingyun placed a hand on his shoulder. He told him not to panic. Senior brother, the golden core has been formed. Next, he needs to go through the comprehension after the breakthrough. He must not be disturbed. For now, I will have to go in his place. It's also a good opportunity to visit sister-in-law Qi Ling. In the car, Wang Sheng asked Mao Yu to explain the situation in detail. Mao Yu reported that the last few core members of the Supernatural Society still haven't been found despite an extensive search. But according to the information, the Sacred Fire cultists are secretly operated by an evil cult, such as the Heavenly Fire sect and the Five God sect. Wang Xing pondered. Among these organizations, only the Five God sect has any significant scale. In his past life, the Five God sect was considered a Typical example of a heretical organization. He never expected to encounter them this time, but what he was more concerned about was the news of the Yin-Yang sect. However, Manhwa stated that the Yin-Yang sect had not made a move. Instead, a large number of experts from the Five Gods sect had infiltrated the city. They even boldly declared that they were determined to capture the Heavenly Master's talisman. Upon hearing this, Wang Xing couldn't help but scoff inwardly. The Five Gods sect is actually helping the Yin-Yang sect draw fire. Should I praise them for their selflessness? Meanwhile, Shiyin Shishu beside him, looking out the window, she said with hatred for evil, although it's not on a large scale, it's still ultimately dark cultivation. Fei Yu, we'll go for a walk in the street later. If we encounter any dark cultivators harming people, we should step in. Wang Sheng was a bit helpless about this. He didn't expect that his martial aunt had such a cold exterior but warm heart. She truly had a heart of chivalry, so he could only smile and say, I have a friend who's been keeping an eye on things around here lately. Let's go find her first. The friend Wang Xing mentioned was, of course, Senior Shen. The three met at a restaurant and chatted over a meal. Wang Xing asked his senior sister if anything unusual was happening at school. The senior sister, somewhat uncertain, took out her phone and said, I don't know if this counts. Take a look yourself. Wang Xing took the phone and looked. He saw several comments on the campus forum. These are all part of the conspiracy of the Ming Mountain sect. Even if there's no talent, isn't living a long life without sickness or pain enough. Everyone is qualified to practice. Wang Sheng looked at these comments and replies, and realized that someone was clearly stirring up trouble, and it was highly likely to be the Holy Flame followers. The Super Spiritual Society is auctioning martial arts techniques, and now they're inciting ordinary people. What exactly are they trying to do? However, just as Wang Sheng was contemplating this, Uncle Master Jingyun had discovered the situation. Wang Sheng and Ma Yue turned their heads to look. They saw an evil cultivator placing his hand on the girl's shoulder and walking out. He then took the girl to a hotel, and handed her over to a lecherous old man. He was planning to use her for his evil purposes. At this moment, hiding outside the door, Wang Sheng and Master Jingyun decided to break the door and enter. Master Jingyun appeared behind the old man in an instant. He used his true essence to launch an attack with both hands, and reminded Wang Sheng not to let a single one escape. Wang Sheng followed closely behind, unleashing several sword energies, instantly killing the demonic cultivator. Having dealt with this, Wang Sheng prepared to help his master deal with the sneaky old man. Although his master was currently suppressing the old man in battle, but Wang Sheng knew that his uncle only practiced in the mountains. He lacked practical combat experience. Over time, I feared problems would arise, so he immediately reminded his uncle, overpower your enemy, show no mercy. His uncle listened and decisively gathered his true essence. With one palm strike to the old man's chest, he sent the old man flying. I will rape and murder all the women related to you. These words instantly touched Wang Sheng's reverse scale. He immediately drew his sword and leaped from the 100-meter-high building. He practices the way and sword, just to protect his family. If he can't even do that, what's the point of being reborn and starting over? Seeing Wang Sheng recklessly charging toward him with a sword, the old man started to panic. He hadn't expected that Wang Sheng, so young, just entering the fetus formation stage, would be fearless of his spiritual attacks. It's even more troublesome than that void pill. He immediately gathered all his sinister energy. It turned into countless ghostly hands, reaching towards Wang Sheng. Wang Sheng decisively unleashed his strongest strike to break through the many ghostly hands. He pierced the old man through and through. Then, with a loud crash, both of them fell to the ground. Immediately, rubble flew everywhere, and dust filled the entire area. When the smoke cleared, the old man was completely dead. Wang Sheng was lying on the ground. Looking at the broken sword in his hand, he muttered an apology, then passed out. A dragon has its scales, touch them, and you die. Even if it meant jumping from the 8th floor, Wang Sheng would kill this demonic cultivator who threatened his family. Meanwhile, inside the hospital, Mao Yu is reporting to the team leader about the identity of the evil cultivator. It turns out that the evil cultivator was once a fugitive wanted for countless crimes. He is responsible for over 10 murders. After the revival of the world's spiritual energy, he relied on the dark arts of yin-yang replenishment to become a master. Not long ago, he became an elder of the Five God sect. His Dao name is Mu Yin Shin Qian Hua Dao Ren. Upon hearing this, the master's wife let out a long sigh of relief. Turning to Wang Sheng, I said, since we've discovered the evil cultivator's tracks, there are hundreds of ways to deal with him. You're quite full of social responsibility. You jumped directly from the 18th floor and gave that person a sword. Wang Xing scratched his head sheepishly. I didn't think that much about it at the time. At this time, Uncle Jingyun walked over. He snorted coldly. Fei Yu, if you hadn't come down the mountain to help, how would you have gotten injured? Seeing the tension between the martial uncle and martial aunt as if they were about to fight, Wang Xing quickly stepped in to mediate. Only then did they snort at each other and turn away. Seeing this, Wang Xing sighed in relief. Thankfully, they didn't fight. However, the senior beside him reminded Wang Xing, don't worry about others. It takes 100 days to fully recover from a bone injury. Just rest well for now. I have to go back to school. I'll bring you some bone soup tomorrow. Wang Xing nodded and thanked his senior. Then the senior walked out of the hospital. A car was already waiting for her on the road. There were 2 bodyguards accompanying the car. At this moment, the car window slowly rolled down. An elderly voice came from inside the car. We've been searching for you, young master, with great difficulty. I am unable to get out of the car to salute, please forgive me. Seeing the elderly lady inside the car, senior sister was also a bit surprised. Grandmother, what brings you here? But Grandma San's feet indicate that we can't rest easy, so we came to protect you. The young master won't have a peaceful night tonight. At the same time, in front of the hospital, all the personnel from the special investigation team are ready to depart. According to the information gathered, the auction will take place at midnight tonight. Cash transactions are allowed. You can also exchange with cultivation methods. The Heavenly Master Talisman is a top-tier cultivation method of talisman techniques. Naturally, it has attracted many cultivators. And in order to obtain the method, they may even resort to murder and robbery, endangering countless ordinary people. Wang Xing couldn't go because of his injuries, but fortunately, Uncle Jingyun stepped in, helped the master stabilize the situation. With her presence, the collaboration between the Special Investigation Group and Longhu Mountain can proceed smoothly. Now they have set up an elaborate trap, waiting for the Holy Fire Bearer to appear and be captured in one swift move. But at that moment, Wang Xing in the hospital room suddenly asked Mao Yu, what's the date today? Mao Yu instinctively replied, October 18th. What's wrong? Receiving such an answer, Wang Xing couldn't help but fall into thought. He recalled what he was doing at this time. In his previous life, he had a strange feeling that this event was somehow connected to his past life. Suddenly, Wang Xing sharply remembered. The torchbearer. Could it be? At that moment, the door to the hospital room slammed open, interrupting Wang Xing's train of thought. Immediately after, he saw Shi Qianzhang, hugging his thigh and crying, Xinggu, I missed you so much, Xinggu. Wang Xing was somewhat surprised to see Shi Qianzhang suddenly appear, but he still waved his hand, signaling Mao Yu to go out first. After Mao Yu closed the door and left, Wang Xing turned his head and told Shi Ganzhang to speak his mind. What's the point of all this life-or-death drama? You're a disciple of Longhu Mountain. Don't embarrass yourself. Shi Qianzhang wiped away his tears and replied, Xinggu, don't scold me anymore. But the next second, Wang Xing directly asked, you're here for Guo Qianqing, the Saint Fire Cultivator, aren't you? It turned out Wang Xing had already guessed their relationship. He just didn't expect that the Celestial Master, Fu Meng, would actually have been given the talisman by Shi Qianzhang. Shi Qianzhang, however, lowered his head, clenching his fists and gritting his teeth, saying, he said he was going to do something big, and told me not to track him down, but I really didn't know he'd make it this big. Even more, I didn't know how many people would die tonight. I have a way to find him, but I dare not. He's my best brother. Go, tell me what I should do. My heart is so blocked. Wang Xing responded to this. For the public, you protect the sect and inherit the martial arts. For yourself, you need to save your senior brother and stop him from making a mistake. The auction is about to start. If you hesitate any longer, it might be too late to undo everything. After some inner struggle, Shi Qianzhang finally made up his mind. He decided to find Guo Qianqing. He would stop him before he makes things worse. Wang Xing also showed a relieved smile. But just then, an attack suddenly came. Fortunately, Wang Xing pulled Shi Qianzhang away in time, narrowly avoiding it. Then, 3 people walked in from outside the door. One of them was the tall man from before. The young man at the front then laughed and said, Daoist Shi, where are you going? Daoist Qianqing, the great deed is about to be accomplished. You should just leave him alone. Shi Qianzhang stood behind Wang Xing and questioned them. Who are you? Wang Xing looked at them, also starting to worry. The young man's cultivation level was unclear, but both of his attendants were already at the embryo stage. It seems we've run into trouble. At this moment, the young man spoke again, still smiling. Since Daoist Wang has already escaped, don't get involved in this anymore. We just want to talk to Daoist Shi. But as soon as we finished speaking, the nurse behind us reminded us. The young master's special investigation team has sent people over. Hearing this, the young man's eyes narrowed instantly. Then we can only let Daoist Shi go first. With the young man's order, the two of them charged towards Shi Qianzhang at the same time. The nurse held two daggers and instantly pressed them against Shi Qianzhang's neck. Fortunately, Shi Qianzhang quickly activated his diamond body technique, making it hard for the blades to pierce. But in the end, two fists can't fight four hands. To avoid involving Wang Sheng, Shi Qianzhang decisively jumped out of the window and left. The three of them quickly followed and went after him. Immediately afterward, Wang Sheng saw two fetal condensation realm cultivators surrounding Shi Qianzhang downstairs and attacking him. He knew these people were only targeting Shi Qianzhang. As long as he didn't interfere, they would mostly be able to weather this crisis. But could he really stand by and watch them die? At that moment, Shi Qianzhang, who was grappling with the tall man, suddenly felt a pair of high heels land on his shoulder. The next second, the nurse appeared above him. She held two daggers, ready to kill him. In a split second, Wang Sheng acted swiftly, throwing the wheelchair and knocking the nurse away. Then, he swung his sword and repelled the tall man. He slowly settled back into the wheelchair. Resolutely holding the sword, he faced the three of them. Although I'm not very familiar with Daoist Qianzhang, but we can't just let him die here. Seeing Wang Sheng about to intervene, the young man smiled. He ordered the tall man to deal with Wang Sheng. The tall man immediately leapt up and struck down at Wang Sheng. There was no clear winner last time. Today, we'll continue. But Wang Sheng remained completely unfazed. Although his feet are injured and he can't use the 7-star sword formation, he's not limited to just the 7-star sword formation anymore. His strength has also broken through to the fetal condensation realm. He's far stronger than before. Facing the tall man's incoming strike, he directly used the two instruments sword intent, deflecting the attack with ease. Using skillful force, he sent his opponent flying. Then he used the two instruments, 4 images, and 8 trigrams to protect himself. But at this moment, Shi Qianzhang's side was struggling. It looked like he was about to be killed by the nurse. Wang Sheng suddenly shouted loudly, "Master Jingyun, use your sword technique to kill." The nurse quickly dodged after hearing this. That's when she realized she'd been tricked. What just happened was only sword energy. It wasn't sword control technique at all. Taking advantage of this momentary gap, Shi Qianzhang once again activated the Vajra body protection, and prepared to continue fighting the opponent for another 300 rounds. But before he could finish speaking, his chest was suddenly pierced by a strike. The one who struck was the young man. Wang Sheng hurriedly pushed the wheelchair forward to check. Fortunately, Shi Qianzhang wasn't struck in a vital area. "I'm not dying yet." Suddenly, hurried footsteps approached from a distance. The special investigation team finally arrived. Seeing this, the nurse and the young man immediately prepared to retreat. But the tall man, who had been sent flying by Wang Sheng earlier, had lost his mind, completely ignoring his injuries and walked towards Wang Sheng. It seemed he wanted to continue the fight. Seeing this, the young man decisively turned around and decided to ignore it. Their goal had already been achieved. It was time to leave. Then, the tall man covered in blood raised his sword and prepared to strike Wang Sheng again. The special investigation team saw this and immediately took out chains. With lightning speed, they bound his limbs. In an instant, they subdued him. I've informed my colleagues elsewhere about the situation here. One cultivator has been apprehended. 2 more cultivators have fled into the hospital building. Team 1, seal off the entrances. Team 2, begin the search. If any resistance is encountered, eliminate them on sight. Wang Sheng watched them. He thought of the special investigation team he'd heard about in his past life. They once organized a repair squad. Looks like it's them. At this moment, someone suddenly asked Wang Sheng if they needed help with the treatment. Wang Sheng patted Shi Qianzhang, who was beside him, and said, "This is Daoist Shi Qianzhang from Longhu Mountain. He has a way to find the holy fire bearer. You should treat him first." It wasn't until now that Wang Sheng finally understood why he hadn't heard of Shi Qianzhang's name in his past life, because if it weren't for him this time, Shi Qianzhang would probably have really met his end. That's why he hadn't heard of Shi Qianzhang in his past life. Soon after, the wounds on Shi Qianzhang were dressed. His condition stabilized. He immediately took out a green talisman. The next moment, the talisman spontaneously ignited. Shi Qianzhang gritted his teeth and said, "Qianqing, I'm sorry. In the next life, I'll work for you like an ox or a horse." After saying that, he tossed the talisman in his hand. It transformed into a talisman bird and flew away. The special investigation team immediately notified headquarters. They used all means to lock onto the talisman bird. Shi Qianzhang lay on the ground, covering his face and crying. After crying, he waited for the outcome with Wang Sheng. the primordial energy of the world began to revive. The former disciple of Longhu Mountain transformed into the holy fire figure. He publicly auctioned the Heavenly Master's talisman online. The purpose was to allow everyone on Earth to cultivate. At 2 a.m., the holy fire figure, Yi Qianqing, was finally captured. Wang Sheng also arrived at the interrogation room. At this moment, Guo Qianqing coughed twice. He told Wang Sheng and the others to ask whatever they wanted. After all, he was already seriously ill and didn't have much time left. There was no need to waste energy tormenting him anymore. Upon hearing this, the master's wife asked him to explain the process of the Celestial Master's talisman auction. Unexpectedly, Guo Qianqing said there was no auction at all, although he was a discarded disciple of Longhu Mountain. But it's impossible to let the Celestial Master's talisman fall into the hands of the evil cultivators. As for what they intend to exchange it for, he's already given the cultivation techniques to someone he trusts. Next, they will spread these cultivation techniques online. They will disseminate these cultivation techniques via the internet. Hearing this, Shen Yang immediately ordered the immediate contact of the network department to monitor the entire network. But Guo Qianqing suddenly asked a question at this time. Why can't everyone cultivate if primal energy has returned to Earth? I'm just a pioneer. Surely there will be others later. But before he could finish, his senior wife sharply scolded and interrupted him. She had him suppressed and placed under strict guard. But Guo Qianqing laughed at this moment. No need to worry. My time has come. After speaking, his hand gradually fell, along with the cigarette falling to the ground. The holy fire bearer, Guo Qianqing, completely left this world. Seeing this, the master's wife slammed the wall hard. She then ordered to spread the news of the holy fire bearer's death, to quickly restore order to the chaos. Those cultivators who are still causing a disturbance outside should be arrested and imprisoned. Wang Sheng looked at the deceased Guo Qianqing, and couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness. He thought to himself, the cultivation techniques I practiced in my past life were indeed passed down from someone who had been touched by the sacred flame, stealing the sacred flame to bestow upon the world. In a way, Guo Qianqing, he truly deserves the name of the holy flame bearer. However, although the holy flame bearer is dead, the turmoil caused by him and the auction has not yet settled. Fortunately, under the joint suppression from various parties, those cultivators who caused trouble under false pretenses did not create too much of a stir. After this battle, senior sister Jingyun claimed that she could no longer endure the filth of the mortal world. I'll wait at the mountain for the master to emerge. Meanwhile, Wang Xing stays in the city to heal his wounds. He hopes to use this opportunity to reshape his bones and refine his body.